If you but if you don't and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-897-1434. 800-897-1434. 800-897-1434. That's 800-897-1434.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
Freedom and equality. These words are the real battlegrounds where America's future is going to be decided. Ron DeSantis tells us that Florida is free, yet he uses the power of government to ban books, to undermine private businesses, and to impose a form of official thought throughout the state.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument, the rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, Andre, how you doing, sweetie?
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. The number of confirmed dead in the Hawaii wildfires is rising, now approaching 100. Authorities are warning that the effort to find and identify the dead is still in its early stages. The AP's Jackie Quinn.
Mourning and searching in Maui. FEMA crews are going door to door looking for possible survivors or victims, with some 2,000 structures burned by last week's fires.
Still waiting, hoping.
Abe Yabez has 9 relatives unaccounted for. He's doing what he can to find them.
We've been to a lot of hotels inside Lahaina, but none of them are there. So we've been to police station.
All right, sending Pam Morris Walton through.
Okay,
this
fantastic.
Lahaina resident, David, he knows 3 of
and everyone hear each other.
They were trying to drive away from the flames together in a car. David
Miss
decided
Pam?
to run to the ocean.
Good morning.
How are you?
Miss Santita?
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am doing well.
I'm doing
thank
so
you.
well.
It's great to hear your voice.
Good. Good to hear your voice.
Just east of Pittsburgh.
Great. I'm going to call you this week. Is this a good week for you, or is the 1st of September better?
It is.
Okay, you'll hear from me.
Fine.
You will hear from
Okay.
me.
And I hope I see you Thursday night at the I think you're singing before your father is honored.
Is that Thursday night?
At the Parliament? I think it's Thursday night, isn't it?
The 18th? 17th, 18th?
You know what? I hope I hear you. I'm going to say that, okay?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, they were telling me about it.
Can hear you both on Facebook.
They were telling me.
Okay.
Good. All right. We'll talk about it later. Yeah, today's the 14th. So, yes, it is, I think it's the 17th, isn't it? I think it's Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, someone mentioned you last evening on their boat cruise.
Okay.
10 innings at San Francisco, 3-2.
Right.
And they said his daughter's going to be singing. Have you met her? I said, yeah.
Oh, bless their hearts.
I said, yes.
Bless their
She's my
hearts.
friend.
Oh my goodness. What'd you say? And how?
She's my friend.
Oh, absolutely.
But it made me feel so good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you sound good. You sound wonderful.
Oh, so do you.
Okay.
So do you. It's wonderful hearing your
Thank you.
voice.
I'm going to jump off. Thank you. I'm going to jump off afterwards and get on the prayer line, okay?
Of course,
Just
no
want to let you
worries.
know.
I thank you for that.
Okay.
This is 8:20
Okay.
p.m.
All right.
WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
couple more things.
Now your WCPT
Okay.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Buczynski. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms here for today with cloudy skies and temperatures holding rather steady. Winds out of the southeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy with a low near 62. By Tuesday, skies
Feels
become
like
mostly
it's fall
sunny,
here
around
already.
75. Wednesday, sunshine, high of 81. Thursday,
I know.
showers, blend of clouds and
Like,
sun.
Yeah.
That's
The
your
weather is changing.
update.
Yeah.
Currently,
I mean,
it's
already. It's like I
This
just
is
got
a
my summer
WCPT
clothes down.
Moment in labor. On February 8th,
Mhm.
workers in Memphis,
Man.
Tennessee fired 7
Look at
workers
that.
who were trying to unionize the company. This is currently denying these
Okay, I need,
accusations,
well, I kept
saying
my
they were
sweaters
fired
out.
for
'Cause it's just,
security reasons. However, this is not the first
Well, we
time
actually need
something
them
like
at
this has
night.
happened.
We
I
actually
do.
need them.
Can be
Mhm.
traced back to the early 19th century.
Me
Union
too.
busting is when an employer tries to delay, disband, or prevent a union from forming. Despite it being illegal, it has sadly become common in the workplace. From President Ronald Reagan firing all members of the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization who went on strike, to Amazon firing DeQuan Smith for trying to create the Amazon Labor Union, to the latest case of Starbucks firing employees who are trying to unionize. Union busting was made illegal in 1935 with the National Labor Relations Act, yet somehow the practices of union busting are still happening today. This has been a WCPT Moment in Labor. We are working for your rights.
If you don't have final expense insurance, this message is for you. Life Care provides valuable whole life insurance to help cover final expenses, medical bills, burial costs, and unpaid debt. A final expense insurance policy is fast, easy, affordable life insurance available to anyone between the ages of 50 and 80. No medical exams, no lengthy questionnaires, and no waiting period. Call Life Care at 800-956-0683. 800-956-0683.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bates. Anyone will tell you battling cancer is not pretty, and neither are the complications like lymphedema, a chronic disease that can leave anyone undergoing cancer treatment with a lifetime of swelling and pain, often affecting one's entire body and sense of self. If you're facing a cancer diagnosis, discuss lymphedema with your doctor. With knowledge and action, we can learn and live. Learn more at lymphaticnetwork.org.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
September 15th to the 17th in Douglas Park. Come see all your favorite bands from Foo Fighters, Turnstile, The Postal Service, Death Cab for Cutie, Queens of the Stone Age, The Cure, and so many more. Tickets are on sale at riotfest.org. And lucky for you, WCPT wants to send you.
All
Go
right,
to heartlandsignal.com
here we go.
and sign up for the
Got the
WCPT
last
20
bit
Club
of my-
for your chance to win. Riot Fest 2023,
Oh,
September 15th
Pam,
and
I
17th
mean,
at Douglas Park, Chicago.
I've had a tough weekend. I really didn't feel great over the past few days.
Oh no.
Oh, no,
Oh no.
it was
Okay.
okay. No, it was okay.
I
So
hope
when I
that you
got up,
feel better.
oh, I feel
better.
much better. But I mean, oh, I felt
Okay.
awful. I had to get up, I had to wash my hair, blow it dry.
Put them in a metal container. Those embers
You know,
could start a
just an
wildfire.
extra step. You know, I was like, oh no, oh,
Ha 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 ha.
you know,
Learn more
I
at
pulled out that.
SpoonMeal.com.
Oh, I said, okay, let me wash.
State Forester and the Ad
Let me do
Council.
some quick wash, with co-wash, with the conditioner wash. I'm like, okay, let me do that. And boy, I was a blowing out.
job is
Oh.
empowering.
Oh my gosh. But you know,
Well, you know, some days are like that. Some days are like that.
yeah, but you know, it's a light. You know, it's. I learned how to do my own hair in college.
There are
You know,
6.5 million
As if
people
it was
in
going
the
to be
US.
done. Well, because you know, I didn't. You know, I didn't have a
Developmental
relaxer,
difference such as autism.
and everybody wanted
And
you to
now,
have one.
Thanks to Autism Speaks,
And so you know,
Foundation,
rather
and
than
Special
I would go
Olympics,
get it
there
done
has never
occasionally
been more
because you know I found
opportunity
people who could do it. But then they were like, you know, my mother said, you know, they're gonna mess around, they're gonna cut your hair, you're gonna have a mess. So my mother freaked me out about that.
Pathways to 1 million employment
And you know, but
And you end up doing it yourself.
well, you know, I mean, once I got the haircut, I was good.
To learn more.
Blow it out, I was done. So it's like I've gone back to that.
The Takedown with
Like
Cliff
I'm like, oh,
Schecter.
I know how to do this.
1
do
minute.
this. Okay, thank you. Wow, I
really-
I remember it.
Good.
Will not
Yeah, and it doesn't take me long.
protecting NATO and our allies.
was banking on a divided West. But the president said this is a different NATO, most united he's ever seen this alliance. And I can say, having come here over the years, it feels like a new NATO. It feels not just more relevant, but more determined.
Donald Trump broke apart that alliance. He ripped it apart.
Now today I want to get my equilibrium back,
He brought everyone together to defend Ukraine.
I tell you, God.
Russia's got their butts kicked that way. They've spoken
I
out
felt
recently on the
foolish.
Armenian genocide.
And then, just given all the things that are out here now, I didn't go to the Bud Billiken parade. And the radio show at home. Oh, thank you so much.
From home.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't feeling well, but you don't want to give anybody anything.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Hey. It's Monday, August 14, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today as we really gather under some storm clouds here in Chicago. But I'm so glad to be coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. It's a joy to be with you. It's a joy to be with you today. We're going to be talking about Niger. What is going on over there, and why is so much attention being paid to that conflict? And are we paying attention to what's really going on over there? There's a lot of anti-Western, anti-French, anti-US, anti-NATO, anti-African leaders who stand with the West sentiment. So let's talk about that. What's going on? And most of the critical minerals in the world are in Africa, and more of African leaders and African people are demanding another kind of relationship with the West. The West's wealth is built on Africa and on India and on the so-called global South. And these relationships are being renegotiated as we speak. We've got to talk about that. And then, of course, people want to talk about the Alabama brawl, but I want to know about what's next. The Alabama brawl, you see all of the people who try to defend the co-captain of the Harriet II riverboat, some of them have been fired. Why? And then what's next? What about this second majority minority congressional seat that the Supreme Court said that Alabama needs? That is another Black seat from Alabama that would go to the House of Representatives in Washington. And yet, Alabama has they've said, we're going to ignore the U.S. Supreme Court. We're not going to give you this seat. Wow. We need to talk about that, too. Because if you want to talk about power, Elie Mystal, who is a fabulous writer from the Nation magazine, said what we saw last Saturday, August 5th, 2023, in Alabama was white privilege meeting Black pride. But we've been having that fight, quite frankly. This is not new. What's new is that Black folks didn't walk away slaughtered and dead. That's what's new. Because Nat Turner, that's what that was, white privilege and Black pride. So we have to look at that. We have to look at that. What's going on? And how do we make America a more just society? How do we do that? So that everybody wins. One group cannot always win. You can win too, but everybody else has got to win too. How about that? So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to know what you think the big story is over the weekend, this week. I'm going to go to some of these headlines because I tell you what, when we look at what's happening in Maui, it's something that's a cautionary tale for all of us. Is it climate change? Is it something else? I don't know. It seems like the fire is in a perfect circle. And the people who are suffering the most, interestingly enough, are the poorest people on the island. The people, the workers for the wealthy and all of that. Yeah, that's a story that's not being told. Let's start with these headlines. The death toll from the Maui wildfires has risen to 96. There are more than 1,000 people missing, everybody. It's the deadliest wildfire outbreak in modern U.S. history. Searches continue, and the final death toll may not be known for some time. Indeed, they are asking for DNA for people for the relatives of people who live in the area. The Hawaiian Governor Josh Green described a fire hurricane, as he put it, that spread a mile a minute. Survivors said they were overwhelmed by its speed and smoke. And Hawaiian Electric, the utility company, is facing scrutiny for not cutting power off in advance of high winds to reduce the fire risk. Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis will begin presenting her Trump case this week. For 2 years, an Atlanta area prosecutor by the name of Fani Willis has been investigating whether President Donald Trump broke the law by trying to undo his 2020 election loss in Georgia. And she's finally moving to seek charges in the case. This week, we will see what's happening. She has built up a security team around the courthouse, but people are saying that she and other prosecutors need security as well. Wow. Hunter Biden may face a trial during President Biden's re-election campaign. Why? Biden's plea agreement collapsed, and Attorney General Merrick Garland on Friday appointed a special counsel to further investigate this case, according to the Washington Post. He's facing misdemeanor tax charges and allegations of lying about his drug use when purchasing a gun. Why it matters? Well, according to the Washington Post, he could go on trial in D.C. during his father's re-election campaign when Democrats want to highlight Trump's legal troubles. Wow, everybody. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was sent to jail on Friday. The 31-year-old was charged in December with defrauding investors through his now-defunct cryptocurrency exchange. He had been confined at his parents' house. A judge revoked his bail after finding that he engaged in witness tampering. Home buying is getting even harder for millennials. The median age of a first-time home buyer has climbed to 36. That's the oldest since experts started tracking this data in 1981. People born between 1981 and 1996 have experienced slow economic growth. That is one of the reasons, everybody. And so, hey, in Chicago, we're looking at thunderstorms today, a high of 72 degrees. It seems like the fall has already moved in on us, right? In Minneapolis, St. Paul, you will only have a high of 69 degrees and you will have rain. Wow. The World Cup on Sunday, we have the final, but you got to get there, everybody. Tomorrow, Spain will be facing Sweden. And on Wednesday, Australia will be facing England. Who's going to emerge victorious? We will see. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 3, the Phillies nothing. The Blue Jays 11, the Cubs 4, and the Brewers 7, and the White Sox 3. In the WNBA, the Mystics 83, the Skies 76. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. But we have got my gospel sister, our gospel sister, this icon of our church life, Pam. Well, it's true, Pam Morris. Look, I know it's church when I see you walking in the door. Pam Morris Walton. So come on now.
Thank you.
Of course. And what is the name of your book, and how can we get it before you give us this good news?
The name of the book is 57 Days. And what's so good about that book is that this month is my heart month. It's 7 years old on this coming 25th of this month. It's called 57 Days, The Wait for a Heart Sparks a Spiritual Journey of Faith and Love.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And we love you. And so grateful. Just very quickly, are you in touch with the people whose family donated the heart?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
On the Heart Day, because of the sacrifice that she made to save 7 lives with her son's organ.
Wow.
And instead of me going to dinner alone or with a few people, we take Emma to dinner and say thank you.
Bless your heart.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be taking Emma to dinner this month. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
It feels good.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, of course, of course. Well, you can give us the good news. What's going on today?
Yes. The good news is because of so much that is going on, Santita, because of the world that we're living in, and so many people really need to be encouraged, I decided to step back and give you words can heal. Just 3 words there. Words can heal. We need to watch our words. Using words and phrases can increase your chances and other people's chances for success. Words like I am special, Just say it. I am special. I am unique. I feel good about myself. I keep my commitments. I am beautiful. I have a purpose in life. I am significant. I am loved. I am responsible. I trust my inner voice. I can get a job done well. I expect great things to happen. Positive words can affect your health.
Yes.
You attract into your life what you radiate, what you think, what you say, what you give, and what you love. And remember, words can kill. So watch your words. Say good things. That's it. Have a great day.
That's a whole lot. That's a whole lot. And I think you're going to jump off onto a prayer line today, but that's something for us that we need to think about. I was watching, I was just kind of surfing through YouTube, and I'm always looking for things. And there's a Queen Afua. I'm planning to get her on the show. And she was talking about different things, really, I think that are of great importance to us, things that I've heard you say, but her languaging was different. She talked about how we need to forgive our parents, for example. Because there's a lot of, well, I mean, the thing is, our parents are not, my parents' first names are not Mom and Dad. They're Jesse and Jackie. And, you know, and the parents that I got are different than the parents that Yusef and Jackie got, because when I was born, my parents were in college. They were fresh. I mean, they had to literally go to their parents for permission to marry, right? I mean, they were in a very different space and place. And my grandparents, I'm the first grandchild, they were in a very different space and place. I was an unexpected child. Like, what is she? What? That was very different than the kids. Well, I mean, look, it's just life, right? And so I got something different from my parents than my younger siblings got, particularly the babies. But then she also talked about water seeking its own level. You end up with people with whom you vibrate. So when we start blaming and shaming partners and friends in our lives, you need to look at yourself, because they really reflect who you are at that time.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, I mean, beginning to give ourselves positive messages so that we can move forward in life and move upward in life.
Yes.
I think that is so important, because we have been inundated with negativity. And I thank you for that today. I really, really do. I mean, because we need that. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you are special, and you are beautiful.
You are special.
Yes,
you are beautiful. And guess what? I love you. And guess what? There's nothing you can do about it.
You can't do about it. Have a good one.
I love this woman. She is too many things. I mean, she's always going to tell you, and she means it. That's right. Well, Joyce said, that's right. And Joyce said, you're resonating with people this morning. Joyce said, yes, Lord. Words can heal, and words can kill. Thank you for that. That's right.
Yes, they can. So watch your words.
Watch it.
Okay.
And that's
Thank
right.
you.
I love you so much. And everybody, watch what you say to yourself. You know, and watch how you think about yourself. You know, we need to start telling each other and ourselves all the good that we are, not all that we are not. Believe me, I've experienced it. And some people who were just not as developed as they needed to be at the time, but that was part of my lesson. You know, sometimes folks tell you all that you are not. And there's an old African story, an African proverb. When people commit a crime in this particular village, they don't put them in jail. They put them in the center of the village. And the village then walks around them. And they don't throw sticks and stones. No. They tell them all of the wonderful things that they are. And they walk around them for hours telling them that. Think about that. Can you imagine if we had a system that lifted people up instead of continuing to break them down? Not just a penal system, but just a whole social system. What kind of people would we be if we lifted one another up? If we lifted ourselves up? I'm not saying be a braggart, but the fact is, the bigger you are, the bigger you want other people to be. Think about that. So I want you to call me and let me know what you think about that beautiful message from Pam Morris Walton today. Did it resonate with you? You can even put it in the chat line. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Hey, Jennifer Anderson Swift. Good day to you, David Turnbull and Joyce Anderson and Andre Parker, my god brother, and Dave Dowling, and who is Michael Ann, my girl, one of our founding members of the Santita Jackson Show Morning Stars, and Carolyn Ruff. Sending you all so much love this morning. Flora Michelle, Raphael, hey sweetie. Sending you all so much love today. Do we have Dr. Knighton up with us yet?
No.
Okay, well, we're going to try and get her because she wants to look at what's happening in Maui and the infection risk. That's something we don't think about. Now, what I am seeing in Maui is the emotional and spiritual impact of watching so much death, so much destruction. And just, I mean, people are looking for their family. People are watching their homes destroyed, their towns destroyed, not just their businesses, but their whole way of life being completely taken out by this is already the deadliest fire in the history of the United States. What would you do if your whole neighborhood was wiped out? What would you do? I mean, beyond insurance may or may not pay. What would you do? How would you react? Are you prepared to deal with something like that? That's what they're dealing with right now. And as a federal government, do we have enough resources that we're marshaling their way? Remember, they're an island. So even if they need more things from the mainland, we have to get them over there. But as we spend a lot of time building and rebuilding other countries, and I think that we've been so blessed, we ought to do it. Or if God gives you more, you need to do more. That having been said, what are we doing at home? What are we doing at home? What will be done to help people build their homes? Let's start there. Rebuild their neighborhoods, rebuild their schools, rebuild their businesses. Remember, when European immigrants came to the United States, they were given tracts of land. And they were also given schools, tracts of land upon which schools were developed. Talk about reparations. No, they were restored for what happened to them in Europe. So they were given tracts of land for free. They were given schools, land grant schools that did not start with HBCUs. No. When you see a lot of the settling in the West, that's what happened. The pathway was made for them to come here. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing that indigenous people lost everything in that deal, and they need to be restored. Absolutely. Whatever it takes, they need to be restored, and we're not going to be blessed until we do restore them. That having been said, what are we going to do for the people of Hawaii? For that tract of land in Maui, what are we going to do? How are we going to restore them? And what about their health? That is something that Dr. Knighton was going to come on and talk about today, that they are at heightened risk for infection. What can be done to prevent infection? Can you imagine them inhaling all of those fumes, all of that smoke? Think about that. And the depression that settles in, that depresses your immune system. What health resources are being marshaled to help those people right now? What's being done for them? Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. What should be done for the people of Maui? What do you think should be done? Call me at 773-763-9278. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Niger. What's happening in Niger? Many of us are hearing about these African rebels the military who have overtaken Niger, and the African leaders, the African Union, ECOWAS, and France and NATO and the United States want them out. But other African leaders on the continent have said, don't you dare come in here. And for these African leaders who are allied with the West, as the former president of Niger had been, he was democratically elected, but in one of the poorest nations on earth, he was an absolute ally of the West, of France, of the United States. I don't know how it is that you have a resource that is vital to the running of the world, and yet you're one of the poorest countries on earth. How does that continue to happen? That is not something, that's unnatural, everybody. It's unnatural. And we need to look at that. Just like this structured poverty that we have in America, it's unnatural. It's not right. How is it that you have people who are on track to become trillionaires? We've created more billionaires during the pandemic than we have in the history of the Republic. And yet today, since last year, we have 7 million more hungry people in the United States. Something is not right about that. What do you think? Something ain't right. Well, guess what? In Niger, they have said, look, France, we want a different relationship with you because it's a former colony of France. And France still controls them. How do they control them? Because they must do all of their business on the French franc, which is something that they don't even use in France. They're on the euro. Oh, think about that. So call me at 773-763-9278. The world is changing, everybody. People want to be free. People want fair deals. People don't want to be treated like children. They don't want to be treated like slaves. They don't want to be treated like indentured servants. They want to be treated as grown people. We're all children of God. And we want things to be right. So let's talk about what's happening in Niger. Let's talk about that Alabama brawl at the top of the hour. What's next? Why were the riverboat workers fired? And what's going to happen with them politically? Take all this energy and do something with it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Hey, Maria Lopez, how are you? Laura Bell, William McKee, hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 sending you all so much love today. Hello, Ari, how you doing, sweetie? Oh, you're just sweet to me. Thank you, thank you. You do not have a poor command of the English language. You give me so many wonderful, 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 wonderful words. And you make me feel good every day, Ari. And I want to thank you for that. You always lift me. I remember there was a young man who became like a brother to me. He's since passed on. He was killed by a drunk driver taking his girlfriend to work about 18 years ago. Pierre Elias, like a brother to me. And Pierre had a little crush on me when we were kids. And I was like, oh, like a silly little girl. Oh, my father stopped me. I was about 8 or 9. He said, baby, don't do that. If anything, be kinder to him. I know you don't like him like that. But I want you to be very kind to him because no one has to like you. Okay. And the fact that he sees something in you that he finds admirable, that he feels, the fact that you bring light into his life is something that you need to honor. My father had those kinds of conversations with me when I was a little girl. He said, you need to honor that. So don't dismiss him. Be kind. Think about that, everybody. Let's figure out how we can be kind to each other. Really. I'm not saying you're not going to get upset every now and then. You are. Come on. I do. I get hot under the collar. Believe it or not, I do. But I don't want to live there. Miss Wanda, please give Mr. Corey my love. But first, I'm sending love to you, girl. So let's talk about Niger. What is going on over there? What is happening? What is happening? I cannot wait to hear what you all have to say about Niger. So let me get over here.
Sending Netfa Freeman and Dr. Gibbs through.
Hey, Netfa, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Okay. And I've got Dr. David Gibbs from the University of Arizona. And so I am glad that you all are together today so we can talk about colonialism. How about that? And
good.
How this all works. Okay. And Dr. Gibbs, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on, Santita.
Always. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I tell you, I'm trying to look up some other things right now, but there we go. I just, I found it interesting, and I thought that you would be great, both of you. Netfa
60
and
seconds,
Dr.
everyone.
Gibbs, I thought you all would be great to talk about what's really happening not just we can start with Niger, but just generally speaking, as you watch the BRICS nations organize, Dr. Gibbs and Mr. Freeman, there's a real anti-colonial sentiment in the world. And we're seeing, those oppressed countries are now rising up. It's a very different world that we're living in, and I think we need to talk about that. So, sending you. I can't wait to hear from all of you shortly. Just give me one. I produce my show, so I'm always looking at a few other things. So, okay, so we are good. Okay.
10 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Devin.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. 763-9278. I have a lot to talk about today, talking about that Alabama brawl. But I want to talk about that because the boat workers who defended their co-captain, many of them have been fired. What's going on with that? Why? But also, what about the political empowerment that can come out of that? There's a second majority-minority district, congressional district, that should come out of that. The Supreme Court said it, interestingly enough, but the state of Alabama said no to the U.S. Supreme Court. It seems a civil war mentality is still at play here. We're talking about at the top of the hour, but let's talk about, I guess another blow against colonialism. That is what we're seeing in Niger. According to the AP, the mutinous soldiers said they will prosecute the deposed president for high treason and for undermining state security. What is really happening there? What we're hearing from some factions is that the African Union and ECOWAS and all of these, I would say, organizations that really represent the status quo, NATO, France, America, they are saying that we could come into Niger and put this down. You had Victoria Nuland, someone, a neocon of wide renown, who went in, and many people said that she was trying to intimidate Niger. It did not work. The people who led the coup, the military leaders, they said, no, you need to leave and don't let any of your people come in. France, let them know they should not come here. Let America, NATO, let them all know, don't come here. We're going to resolve this ourselves. One of the richest countries on earth has one of the poorest populaces. Why is that? How is it that Niger enables France to live relatively well? Well, they are really one of the 5 poorest nations on earth. How does that work? We're talking with Dr. David Gibbs of the University of Arizona, brilliant author and really historian and a political analyst. He's really helped us to put our politics into its proper perspective and context. And I'm always so honored to have him with us. And then, of course, Netfa Freeman, no stranger to this show, part of the show once you've been on once. Netfa, your family. So here you go, from the Black Alliance for Peace. And of course, you were with the Institute for Policy Studies. Let me start with you, Netfa. What happened there? And I mean, one of the things that we're not seeing in the media is this anti-colonial sentiment, this anti-French sentiment, and most people don't know where it comes from. Am I misreading this?
No, no, it's a very pronounced anti-imperialist, and I would actually say imperialist to extend it and to include more than France. You're even seeing growing expressions on the ground calling for the United States to change its ways. So a lot of this is coming from, I think we should start by saying that, because the mainstream, like what do you want to call it, is posing this as a just blanket. It's a coup d'etat. It's an affront against, democracy and whatnot. But we know that the same forces that are doing that have no problem with other coup d'etats. So we can see that there's coup d'etats that emerge that are anti-colonial, that are anti-imperialist, and that are pro the people and actually end up resulting in sometimes in material gain for the people. It's too soon to say that this one is the same. And then there are those coups d'etats that are basically just against the people, and that are also usually and very often inspired by or orchestrated in some way by the colonial forces. Like, for example, we can look at those like Patrice Lumumba, the earliest, and we're talking about all over the world, but just since we're talking about Africa, I'm just going to mention the African ones, and even United States, so Portuguese, French, and the U.S. and other imperialist powers conspired to overthrow and even assassinate the democratically elected Congolese president Patrice Lumumba. Same with CIA overthrew the Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana while he was off on a mission. The same happened with NPAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, the Party for Independence in Guinea and Cape Verde. They assassinated Cabral, and then only a few years after the party won its independence, because that was pending, and they won independence right after, at the time he was assassinated, then the French orchestrated a coup. So it's not beyond them to orchestrate coups. So when they talk about coups, that's just not, anything. When they talk about that lack of democracy, and then they'll also support coups on the ground you're hearing right now, we're hearing Africans talk about what they call constitutional coups. So where people are they're in power and they want to alter the constitution so they can hold on to power. And so these are the kind of things we're seeing. And right now in Niger, it follows a string of coup d'etats, military coup d'etats in the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Conakry, Guinea, Mali, and then also Chad, but Chad seems to be just something that's in the imperialist wheelhouse. So they're not talking about that. And then Niger is where they're drawing the sand. These former French colonies in the Sahel, they're drawing the line in the sand here. And there's a lot of interest at stake in Niger, not to mention that I think that they're just also afraid of the talk about forming an African federation of countries. So African unity is a no-no, according to the imperialist powers, and that these coups that are in these places, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, are being supported. They're being cheered on by the people, unlike others. And then we can talk about this. We're not going to claim that means that there are revolutions now, because it's too soon to say that. But we know that if we're for the people, then we got to back what the people are backing, or at least, support the masses and their aspirations.
Well, there's been a tremendous I don't think that people understand the impact of the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, who was really driving under the white flag of surrender. He had negotiated his surrender, which was frightening. And indeed, I remember when the president of South Africa flew to see him just before he was assassinated, to apologize for changing his vote in the UN Security Council at the behest of President Obama. And he apologized because he was very clear, I've signed your death warrant. And Gaddafi said, don't worry about it. My brother, I understand the game. Just keep fighting for true African union. Keep fighting for us to become one people, saving our resources and making Africa really live out its full potential. I don't think that people really understand the depth of the antipathy, the anger about the killing of Gaddafi. Mr. Freeman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or definitely the antipathy of the killing of Gaddafi, because the Libya, and I tend to like to take things a little bit beyond the individual, but Gaddafi was the leader of the Libyan Arab Jamahiriya, which was socialist, which was doing things continent-wide. It had the highest standard of living of Africans, but what's also key in this part with the West, particularly U.S. Africa, the United States and France, with the U.S. Africa Command called AFRICOM, the military there, and the French Foreign Legion have been claiming they're there in these countries in the Sahel because a lot of these military leaders are also trained by them, but they're claiming they're there to fight the terrorism and violent extremism, which really we can say got its birth in terms of these things and was nurtured and just in their destruction of Libya, because it dispersed the weapons and these extremist groups across the Sahel. And so the West is actually the cause of the terrorism that they claim that they're trying to fight, and they can't get under control. It's also part of the dissatisfaction of the people on the ground, because it's spread and grown. They're not helping get it under control. And so these military officers, the military who's been charged with, been taking this training to try to do it, is saying, well, why should we? You're not helping with the terrorism, and you're making us back these comprador leaders that are, our people are in poverty. Watch this. So this seems to be what what they're saying, and what seems to be what's the impetus for these coups d'etats that we're seeing right now. So Libya is very important, and it stood for a lot, and the people saw it destroyed, and also the destruction of it causing the destabilization of their countries now.
We're talking with Netfa Freeman from the Black Alliance for Peace. He was with the Institute for Policy Studies. We're talking about what's really happening in Niger, what we're not hearing in the corporate media in the United States and in the West, but particularly here in the United States. Dr. David Gibbs, we're watching this. We're watching what's happening in Niger, and I am concerned. I've talked about this more than once, but I felt that it was something that we needed to amplify, because it is intensifying in Niger. It's intensifying in France. It's going to intensify in other places in the world. What is your view of what's happening here? It seems that these former colonies, because they had a pro-Western president who they are about to try for high treason. And they said, no, you were so hugged up with the West that you didn't help your people. This is one of the poorest countries on earth. And we continue to enrich one of the wealthiest Western countries on earth. What's your view of what's happening there?
Well, I'll give a little bit of history, and then I'll move up to what's going on right now. The background to this is basically French colonialism. Niger was a French colony, and France had a very powerful influence on its former colonies after they officially decolonized most of their colonies in Africa in 1960. But under Charles de Gaulle, they had a plan to basically create a kind of permanent French sphere of influence in Africa, with a sort of immense economic, political, military influence, and very heavy cultural influence. People often forget the French cultural influence in Africa is huge, beginning with the French language, which is widely used throughout much of Africa. For what it's worth, I have some connection to Niger, because I served there in the Peace Corps in the late 70s. And I was really struck by the heavy presence of France in the country at that time, which has grown even more intense since I was there. France now is a military base in Niger, something they did not have back then. Something else that's changed is France had an independent foreign policy previously. They were very independent of the United States, whereas now they're mostly acting as sort of a junior partner to the United States. And so both the United States and France have a heavy military presence in Niger. Niger is considered one of the linchpins of the U.S. strategy in Africa, working directly and also through France. And this has been U.S. policy and French policy have been heavily destabilizing. There was mention of the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya. That was a catastrophic event, not only for Libya, but for the whole region. It basically, Libyan arms stores basically, spread all over the Sahel region of Africa, including Niger. Mercenaries from Libya basically spread all over West Africa, fueled instability over the whole region. And again, that was driven by the U.S. and France, who took a leading role in overthrowing Gaddafi. The war on terror basically has resulted in amplification of Islamist movements all over the world, including in the Sahel region. Very destabilizing to Niger, which has its own homegrown Islamic extremist group. And again, this is the direct result from U.S. and French policy, increasingly American policy. So the U.S. and France have been, I would say, very destabilizing forces in Niger and in West Africa more generally, especially recently. And I think this is underappreciated, how much, basically, if you are the military-industrial complex, things like the war on terror and the destabilization associated with the overthrow of Gaddafi, this is the gift that just keeps on giving, because it destabilizes countries, causing new wars, requiring more intervention. And it's kind of an interventionist treadmill, you might say. Now, if you're somebody who happens to live in one of these countries, okay, it's a wholly different matter. All right, Niger, again, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. And in addition to poverty and underdevelopment, they have to deal with the effects of the kind of conflicts that come out of this destabilization. Now, in terms of what happened recently, you did have an elected government under Mohamed Bazoum, who was overthrown in a military coup led by a General Chiani. And, what we know about this is that hostility to France and Bazoum's excessive closeness to the United States and France was a significant factor, at least in tone. There was a significant anti-colonial character to this coup. You're quite right that Victoria Nuland, one of the most militaristic elements in the Biden administration, visited Niger recently. And there's no doubt this was an act of intimidation. For what it's worth, we don't really know. Again, I don't really like the idea of coups any more than the next person. I mean, overthrows of civilian governments are not a good thing, but we don't really know for sure what the people of Niger want. And there's a lot of evidence the coup had popular support. I'll just give one example. I got an email from a former Peace Corps colleague of mine who was in touch with people he knew from Niger back in his Peace Corps days. Over many decades, he's kept in touch with them. And he had a long conversation with a former student of his who's now a teacher. And this person basically expressed great enthusiasm for the coup and basically said that, this is our way, basically, of saying no to France and saying no to colonialism. And so we should not so quickly judge that, the people of Niger don't want the coup. It's very possible they support the coup. And so I think the best thing for the United States to do and for France is to stay out of this and view this as an internal matter to be resolved by the people of Niger.
Well, what about Victoria Nuland? Give us a little bit more background on her, because I thought it was quite significant that she was sent there. And I thought that it was an act of intimidation. I just don't think that it worked. I think they're misreading the situation. Yeah. When Reverend Jackson received his Legion of Honor in France a couple of years ago, there was great unrest, and you could feel it. It was palpable. He was, it was a big deal in the country for Reverend to be receiving this honor. We appreciated it. That having been said, when Reverend met with Macron, he asked him about Haiti. He asked him about the fight that Africans were having to control their own currency, which kind of, it delayed the ceremony for like 90 minutes because that was something that Reverend was pushing on. And the president said, you really have a heart for the poor. He said, absolutely. He said, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. And because the fight has been, how is it that Niger must trade in the franc, but in France you use the euro?
It's a legacy of colonialism, basically. Again, Charles de Gaulle had a plan that he would give nominal independence to the African colonies, but set up a whole series of institutions that would permanently link the colonies to France in a neo-colonial fashion. And the word neo-colonial was openly used in power circles in France. When people think of France, they think of things like, food and luxury products and that kind of thing. France is a very militarized country. And, one sees that in Africa, in some respects, it's a little bit like a miniature version of the United States. They have their own military industrial complex. They have overseas bases. And they have these sort of, it's not really that big a country, but they still have grand ambitions to pretend they're a great power or something like that. And, there's also an economic angle to this as well. There's a whole series of sort of interconnections between French politics and African politics based on money. Politically connected investments, French investments in Africa, basically that are based to some extent upon French power in Africa, which promotes French investments, often linked to political families. There's a whole series of scandals going back decades, basically money from African dictators being used in corrupt fashions to finance elections in France. And it works both ways, of course. France has also financed, bids for power by people in Africa, throughout their former colonies. And in fact, not just the former colonies, but other colonies, for example, the Congo, which was a Belgian colony. There's a lot of French influence there as well. Recently, basically, as France has become integrated into NATO, they've become kind of a junior partner in America's bid for power in Africa. The United States created the Africa Command of the U.S. military as a separate military command, I think run by a 4-star general. And, they work through France to some extent to project American power into Africa. And a lot of this plays out in what's going on in Niger. In the case of Victoria Nuland, she's long known as one of the most hardline figures in the U.S. foreign policy establishment, very militaristic. She was the national security advisor to Richard Cheney before she became a Democrat and moved into, the Obama administration. Now she's the number 2 in the Biden State Department. She was a major figure basically pushing for war with Russia. She visited Niger and, visited with the junta there and basically insisted on the restoration of the previous president. Let me say, it's not up to the United States to determine these things, in my view, but Victoria Nuland doesn't see it that way. In her view, the United States has a right to dictate who governs foreign countries, and she sees it as her right to be the bearer of this information, that the United States has the right to impose governments on foreign countries, and that seems to be what she's trying to do in the case of Niger. It's very heavy-handed. It's not subtle at all what's going on. Part of this, of course, is the issue of, kind of a new Cold War in Africa, in the sense that there's been talk basically of bringing in Russian forces to help with security in Niger, particularly the Wagner mercenary group. I don't really like the Wagner mercenary group, but composed of sort of thugs mostly. But then again, I guess from the Nigerian standpoint, the French soldiers and American soldiers are just another set of thugs. And they basically don't want to be controlled by the United States and France, and they want options, and hence they're looking for other options, which in this case means Russia. Americans are appalled by that, but again, I think from the Southern Hemisphere sees the whole world situation very differently from the way we see it, and from their standpoint, Russia, getting closer to Russia basically reduces their dependence on the old colonial powers like the United States and France.
But but Africans have and Africans and Cubans and revolutionaries have a very different relationship with Russia than the United States. The United States shifted back. The United States is a right-wing country. That's what that's who we are. And Russia did not colonize did not colonize Africa, and they helped Cuba come through the revolution. They helped African countries come in through the revolutions against the West. So and the president of Burkina Faso, Dr. Gibbs, and Netfa Freeman just said Russia to us because of their behavior toward us. I'm not saying this, y'all. Don't get mad with me, and if you get mad, I can live with it. I'm just saying that different folks are viewed differently around the world. America's not viewed as freedom fighters, Netfa. They're seen as an imperialist power, the biggest imperialist power the world has ever known, and we are seen as being destructive.
One of the things that I think people. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, Dr. Gibbs, and then you can close us out, Netfa. Well, no, Netfa, I'm sorry, I only have a couple of minutes. I'm so caught up in the conversation. My goodness. Netfa?
Okay.
Okay,
no,
please.
You're right you're right that, and we usually in the Black Lives Release we talk about the global South versus that, and that and like you're right, the history of the global South, and I had on my radio show the sister from Latin America, Honduras, could lay out a whole string of different relationships that they have, that China and Russia have, that are antithetical to what the West has, and that it's not just the history of colonization; it's also the current history as there's the multipolar world that's emerging. The United States, predominated by the United States, but Western Europe in general, has really a history of strong arming and gangsterism through the multinational financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, imposing structural adjustment programs, leveling sanctions against countries that don't do their bidding. None of that is what they get from Russia and China. We may not use the word family, but we do. You can see allies in terms of a political relationship that the world has been given, particularly the global South, has been able to count on and say, well, there's not. We're going to create these relationships that are bilateral and that are respectful, whatever people can argue about the benefits of China and Russia, what they're doing is benefiting them. Yeah, well, but at least it's not gangsterism. And if we can get a leadership that's not a comprador class, it's not an elite, that's really working for the masses of the people, then different arrangements can be made between the countries. The U.S. doesn't stand for that. The Western countries impose the will, as we see doing now. They're under the threat. They think they're under the threat of losing their uranium deposits and their U.S. drone-based control there in Niger, and their fear of a unity.
Well, I didn't say family. This was the president of Burkina Faso.
Oh, I thought you said we said. Okay, I hear you.
No. I was listening to one of his speeches. I said, okay, I got you. And I think that, people need to understand these relationships.
At that summit, yeah.
Look, when I was in South Africa just maybe a year or so after the assassination of Gaddafi, and the anger toward the United States for his assassination was palpable. And as a matter of fact, as you recall, when President Obama went to South Africa, he had to abbreviate his trip because there were so many protests. Remember that?
Yeah.
They had to send him his honorary degree across. They said no, he had to leave. And there's a bad taste left in the mouth. I'm sorry, stay right there. We'll be talking through the break. But you're going to come back, both you and Dr. Gibbs, to have this conversation. Let's talk about the Alabama brawl, everybody. Whew. Talking about the brawl in Africa, the brawl in Alabama. Whew. Back in just a few minutes. Before we bring them on, but keep talking, Netfa. I'm sorry, because I've got to make a turn to another segment.
Oh, that's okay. But I was only quickly going to mention this, that when I'm talking about Libya, I didn't get to mention the Pan-African projects it had. I was kind of talking about its own the achievements internal to its country, but then they have the currency they were trying to establish. Absolutely. And the telecommunications grid continentally. So that's really where that anger, people were seeing that there was something developing.
The gold,
yeah, the gold,
the second largest holders of gold on earth. And now they're a failed state, not because they failed, but because they were collapsed. They didn't collapse. We collapsed them. It's a horrible thing that we've done. Horrible. And they're very angry that it happened under the watch of a Black president. They're like, you cannot believe, they can't believe that happened at that time.
That's the only way it could have happened, though, because if George Bush had done it,
that's right.
He'd have been like, well, what?
Well, there's much mischief under the cover of darkness, right? Well, under the cover of darkness, you do a whole lot of things. That's why when I see them put Black folks on top of the military and AFRICOM, I said, oh, no. What are they about to do? But
I know about that.
Well, but I want you to come back, and I'd like for you and Dr. Gibbs to elaborate on not just what's happening, and if you could connect me to the young woman from Latin America, I'd love to talk about that as well. Reverend just got the highest honor. From Colombia just a few weeks ago. Because he couldn't make the trip because of his health. They came here. And bestowed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can definitely connect.
Please do.
Lucy Quesada Boigada is her name. She's on the radio. She has her own radio station here, but she's an activist, Latin American activist around. And Honduras had their own change of government that's being attacked. So she lives in the U.S. in New York, but she's active.
Well, I would like to.
You wanted me to stay on? Okay.
Well, no, actually, I'm going to let you and Dr. Gibbs go, but I want you all to come back.
Sure.
Because I want it. Because I think Dr. Gibbs and Netfa Freeman. I really feel that Americans have been shortchanged because they have not been given the information in the proper context. And so many of us are fair-minded people. When we find out the things that have been done in our name, it shocks us. Number one, we don't want to believe it. And then when we do, we want it to stop. That's what happened with Vietnam. That's what happens with all these wars. When we get the truth, we go, wait a minute, stop, don't do that. No. I didn't sign up for that. That's what happens. Our veterans come back angry because they say, I didn't sign up for this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and we only scratched the surface on this issue because we didn't even talk about the Burkina Faso and Mali saying that they would defend Niger's borders if ECOWAS, this military.
I'm gonna bring you back. It's gonna be in a few days.
Okay.
Trust and believe. No.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm not done with this. I have to space it out.
That's a whole lot.
Oh yeah. Because it's, and I mean, and the fact that Dr. Gibbs has worked over there. I mean, and that, I know I've spent time there, and Reverend has a big footprint in Africa, and we get there. And my sister taught in Morocco for a couple of years. She's a PhD. She does international education policy. And so we've spent a lot of time there, a lot of time. And so I don't talk about Africa. I talk about Africa generally, but the countries specifically. But I know about, I said, the assassination of Gaddafi is going to play itself out. It's going to take years. I think we were at President Kenyatta's inauguration, his first one. And that's what they were talking about. The presidents were so angry. They were just
sending Senator Coleman, Attorney Jones, and Commissioner Ellis through.
So I'm going to let you lovely people go, but we're going to go, Dr. Gibbs and Netfa. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Dr. Gibbs, before you go that you'd like for the audience to know?
Well, I think that one of the things that's, again, often missed in the West is that in the Southern Hemisphere, the entire international conflict looks very different. And when they look at things like NATO, what they see is the United States, Europe, and sort of, what's another U.S. ally, Japan. It looks an awful lot like the colonialist alliance from the 19th century.
It is.
It looks like what used to be called the civilized world. That was the term they used back then, the civilized world. And so, the rhetoric, a lot of the sort of self-righteous rhetoric being issued, basically, sounds that does sound reminiscent of colonialism. Sounds that way to me, and I suspect it sounds that way very much to people in, for example, Niger. And I think that's very much the backdrop of what's going on, how the entire conflict is playing out in Niger right now, is a kind of an anti-colonial tone that I don't think is very much appreciated in Washington and Paris.
If it were appreciated, they never would have sent Victoria Nuland over there.
Yeah.
Like, what were you thinking by sending her, of all people?
Other people, yeah.
That was crazy. But it was arrogance. It's called hubris, excessive arrogance and pride. Oh my gosh. I said, okay. So you just think you're going to walk her over there? Because as a woman, she can. It's just like as a Black person, you can do damage. Because the presumption very quickly, and everybody on the call, Commissioner Ellis and Alabama State Senator Marika Coleman and Attorney Darrell Jones. You remember when they took the hostages in '79 in Iran, right?
60 seconds.
My mother very quickly was on a peace mission in Lebanon with Yasser Arafat. And he negotiated with the Ayatollah for my mother and her women's group to go get the people and bring them back. And they were going to release all the hostages because of the oppression of Black people. But my father, the president said, get her home. My mother came home, and they released the Black hostages, remember, and the women because of that. That was because she was over there. But they stopped doing that after Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell. They stopped that. That ended. So I love you both. I'm going to let you go, and we're going to pivot on to the Atlanta brawl. Another brawl with African descendants. Sending you much love.
10 seconds.
Oh, my word. It just doesn't stop. Hurricanes start in Africa, and I guess so many other things do too. Stand by, everybody.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Monday, August 14, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today as we've been talking about Niger, what's happening there. We're going to continue that conversation because it has tremendous consequence to us here in the United States. Right now, let's talk about this Alabama brawl. It's something that has got America and the world talking. But why were many of the defenders of the co-captain who was attacked by the men on the pontoon boat, the Black co-captain of the ship who was attacked by white men on this pontoon boat. Well, he was defended by his colleagues, and many of them have been fired. Why? And what about the political fallout and the political possibilities? I mean, this is in a time when the Voting Rights Act was gutted, and even in this, with this conservative court, they have affirmed that Alabama needs a second Black congressional district, majority minority district. But the state of Alabama, they have told, they've just said no to the U.S. Supreme Court, to put it politely. So what is all of that going to mean? Well, the court cases have started and all of that. So we have got to get to that, because what is beyond the brawl? What can be the move for empowerment for the people of Alabama? If you go through Selma, if you go through many of these towns, they are virtually unchanged. Virtually unchanged. Why? Because very few have the wealth and most people have the poverty. And that's still not right. And many of those people who are impoverished are white. It's still not right. Call me at 773-763-9278. How are you still reacting to what happened in Alabama? Indeed, Elie Mystal, who was a fabulous writer from the Nation magazine, said this is where you saw white privilege meet Black pride, and Black pride trumped it all. So let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. Hey, Yvonne, sending you so much love, my girl, my sister. Hey, in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 72 degrees. It seems like the fall is moving in. It's only August. And thunderstorms. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 69 degrees and rain. In the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the championship is on Sunday, but you got to get there first. Will it be Spain? Will it be Sweden? Will it be Australia? Will it be England? We will know after tomorrow, everybody. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 3, the Phillies 0, the Blue Jays 11, the Cubs 4, and the Brewers 7, and the White Sox 3 in the WNBA, the Mystics 83, the Sky 76. The death toll from the Maui wildfires has risen to 96. It's the deadliest outbreak in modern U.S. history. Praying for those people today. A Georgia prosecutor by the name of Fani Willis will begin presenting her case against Trump this week. Hunter Biden may face a trial during President Biden's re-election campaign, given the fact that his plea agreement collapsed and Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel on Friday to further investigate his case. Those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about the Alabama brawl. What are your thoughts about it? I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, a lot of people, now they're even selling earrings that are chairs, the chair that the gentleman used to be, in the fight, in the brawl, and their necklaces, and there are memes, and there are jokes, but there are political opportunities. There are political possibilities here, because you got to go from the excitement of that moment to empowerment in this time. So let's talk about this, because we're watching the GOP, according to this New York Times headline, map by map, chip away at Black political power, which at this time is in Democratic hands, but they're chipping away at Black political power, everybody, in Florida, in North Carolina, in Alabama, all around the country, not just on the federal level, but county by county. In Texas, Texas has grown by 4 million people. 95% of those people are people of color. And yet they get 2 white congressional districts. Something's not right here. So, of course, we've got to talk with Alabama State Senator Marika Coleman about what happened there, what's happening there, what's next. Of course, Texas Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, how he and everybody else saw Alabama, and what's happening in Texas. And Attorney Daryl Jones, who no doubt he and Barbara Arnwine will be in court. He's the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, fighting for our voting rights. So I got the right panel today. Senator Coleman, talk to me. Just in a nutshell, what happened on August 5th? How is it these vote workers were fired? Where do we go from here?
Sure. Thank you, Santita. I really appreciate you having me on and highlighting what's going on in Alabama and all the various up-to-date news stories, because so goes in Alabama, so goes the rest of the nation. But on August the 5th, many people around the country saw the live videos of the co-captain of the Harriet II being attacked by a mob of white people who owned the private boat. When the co-captain threw the hat up, that now has become a depiction of a rally call, because then people did come to his defense. In the initial attack, there was a young white man, a young white boy, 16 years old, who actually drove him over in the little small speedboat from the Harriet Q to the dock, to once again, after 45 minutes of trying to get the private boat owners to leave or to move so the Harriet could dock, he drove him over, and he also was attacking it, and his mother has filed charges on his behalf as a minor against those folks as well. But what you mentioned in the top of the hour was about some of the employees that came to the aid of the co-captain being fired. When the Harriet Q actually docked, we saw videos of the crew member coming to defend their coworker. Prior to the Harriet Q docking, we saw a young 16-year-old who swam across the water. Yes. Also being defense of young Aaron, who they're calling Aquaman and all kinds of different names. What a hero in his own right, to defend his coworker. Some of those folks initially were told that they were fired. Last night, after you and I text back and forth, and I saw a couple of videos, there was a video of a woman who said she was fired. I did connect again with my people in Montgomery. I'm in Jefferson County and Birmingham area. And I'm told that everybody has been reinstated. Okay. And that the last video, there's a video that's circulating that a woman, and they're thinking that woman works somewhere else. I just want to, but that's what my folks in Montgomery have told me. Because again, those folks would be considered, I think there's another lawyer on this, on the panel with us today, Good Samaritans that came in defense of their coworker. And so again, just want to make sure that those folks in coming in defense of their coworker did not lose their job in the interim. So, and I have to say this before I finish my time. Look, I'm kind of girl fanning right now, or woman fanning over Rodney Ellis being on with me this morning. I met many years ago as a legislator. I've been serving for 20 years. He is one of those folks that we've been able to watch through the years on how to actually be a legislator. Mm-hmm. There was actually a documentary, ways in which he was able to go across the aisle to get things passed. So I'm kind of, I'm excited today that I'm on the panel today with the infamous Rodney Ellis and others.
And he is infamous. But you know what? But how to accrue power? I mean, because he did that in a Republican state, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
I mean, we're not talking around you, Commissioner Ellis, but even as he transitioned from being the most powerful man in the state Senate to becoming a commissioner of one of the largest counties in the United States and one of the largest governments in the world. Just it's a real lesson in really understanding power and his understanding of power and what you do, how to wield it for the benefit of the people. So, we give him much. For the benefit of the,
that's the piece right there that you said. There are some folks that have real power for their self-interest, but for the benefit of the people. And that's what I love about Rodney Ellis.
And don't you say anything, Rodney Ellis, because he's embarrassed now. That's what
you've made an old man's day.
See, I told you.
You have made an old man's day. I'm just so proud. Senator Coleman, I want you to know I've watched you from a distance. And Santita, thanks for having me on. I'm glad I got up now. You start telling I get up early, but I don't start talking. I start reading.
I think he did this because I was in school with his wife. And I think that I told right. Leisha, I said, Leisha, I know he only gets up because of you. Thank you.
Marika, I'm so proud. One thing I'm proud of is, Marika, if I'm not mistaken, I think when I met you, you had your master's and you went on to get your law degree.
I did.
It shows, the legislature, state legislatures in most states, like in California, is really a full-time job with part-time, essentially no pay. And I'm just proud of you. Yep. You had a master's degree and a great career, but to work in your time, and obviously you knew it was a little better because what better way to become more proficient at making laws than to get a law degree? And you knew you took it seriously because you knew in law school, look, you were doing it. You already had half the law degree. They should have given you a year and a half credit for being in, of all places, the Southern legislature. But Santita, make sure you give her my cell and everything.
I'm going to do that.
And send me hers, because I do want to stay in touch. You know what? There were a lot of lessons learned in Alabama, and I read some of the stories that you said to me last night when I woke up about 3 a.m, Santita. And, you know, one big challenge is oftentimes prosecutors don't want to use hate crime statutes. You know, I had a big fight here in Texas to pass it from the moment I got to the legislature in Texas, a minute before Ed Richards became governor, maybe a year before. And sexual orientation was a hot button. You know, I think my state, or some southern states, were sensitized to race and gender and religion. And so I had a combination of some folks putting swastikas on synagogues, always the race element there, because most hate crimes are on the basis of race. You know, obviously women would be protected, but the sexual orientation was a hot button. And so we passed the bill when Ann Richards was governor, but I knew it was not enforceable, but it gave us the reporting requirements because Congress passed the federal hate crime reporting statute, which President Bush 1 signed. So I could make the argument to my Republican colleagues, first of all, it's law and order. You know, normally I'm one of those people, as is the case. Senator Coleman did a lot on parole reform in Alabama. Don't let her look. We can't take her lightly. In Alabama, she was over there fighting for parole reform in a southern state, and that's a tough thing to do. But we passed a reporting statute. But here's the issue: one issue with classifying it as a hate crime is when prosecutors get a conviction for something, oftentimes they want to stop because you got to have the elements on the hate crime. You know, common sense would tell you when you see a group of one race beating up a group of another race, the first thought pops in your mind is, okay, is this a racial incident? But you got to have elements to prove it. Somebody got to use the N-word in a hostile sense, you know, not like in a rap song. You know what I mean? They can't be out there saying, I'm not talking about a gold digger. You know what I mean? If they just singing that old song, but you got in a hostile sense. And do you have a record of it? So I'm hoping that this will be a chance, Senator, to look at that Alabama hate crime statute and see if you can make a case. Right. That you ought to change it a bit. I know in Texas, somebody interviewed me a couple of weeks ago. It took me a decade to pass a bill. And then they want to know why isn't it used? Do you need more training for prosecutors? Now, my initial reaction was, hell no. You need prosecutors who are not as lazy. I assure you, if it was a group of black people beating up some white people, they'd have figured out how to get to the hate crime statute real quick. You know what I mean? They search for evidence. But look, I am told the last time I toured the lynching memorial, which is what I still refer to it as, in Montgomery. Last time I was there, and I saw Mayor Reed while I was there. I knew his daddy, show you how old I am. And I assume Joe Reed's still alive, isn't he? I think he gave me his dad's number, and I called him. Yeah.
And he is still rocking and rolling and still, a playmaker.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. I called him. I knew he was alive because I was trying to remind him who I am, and he used a couple of choice words and say, I know who the hell you are. I remember when you worked for McKee Leland. I had to get after y'all. He said, I had to wake y'all up in Texas. But look, here's the point. The largest site of tourism in Alabama is Montgomery. And by the way, it's land that was free, that much land in downtown, because Ralph Abernathy's home was in that area. They ran a freeway. They had a big fight, but they went in the state which is going to run a freeway to. This is what Mayor Reed told me. I mean, it's amazing. That is the second largest business site is the NASA site in Alabama. So you talk about impacting tourism. And as you said, most of the folks who have benefited from the business success of Montgomery are the same people who benefited from slavery. You know, we know when you go to Lynching Memorial, the history of lynchings there, but most people who would get on that boat would have no idea that was the same dock where slaves landed. You know, most cities in the country, you got an old cotton exchange building with a plaque up discussing it, but nobody talks about, well, who picked the cotton so they'd have that nice building? But look, this could impact tourism, and I think that would make even a right-wing governor think, you know, look, we don't want that. We want that money no matter what color it is. And they're not that museum, that project is not just attracting black people. It's a place, it is the convention place. It's hard to get to Montgomery. As the senator knows, usually when I go, it's just easy instead of switching planes and getting stuck at the airport. I just fly to Atlanta and then get somebody, Mac Wilborn or Shirley Franklin or somebody, to go over with me and just drive. But look, there are a lot of lessons learned from this. And I think some people are going to need lawyers. The guy with the chair, obviously, I hope charges won't be charged against him. You know, as I looked at that video, like most people, I updated now, know how to get in my TikTok account. That was so hot. Look, I'm upgrading mine. I'm telling the staff, I want to get in there. But the guy with the chair, you can tell that one guy, I think the first one who made it to the scene, not only was helping with the fight, but he was also trying to stop it. You know, he was
trying to
pushing folks away. Yeah, that's right. That's the word. He was trying to de-escalate. And that was pretty impressive when you don't know, when you got a mob ready to beat you and that privilege there. Even the women. I mean, I'm fine. You know, my wife would be a fighter now. You know, my mother was one. She'd stop on the side of the road, stop people from fighting, trying to de-escalate, and then get in the middle of it.
But you know, I mean, I don't know if they were trying to de-escalate.
I do want to give you all an update. The guy with the chair, Mr. Ray, he was charged with disorderly conduct. A friend of mine actually was going down to try to get him bonded out. He was already bonded out, and there are lawyers lining up to help him. So I think he's going to be just fine. But yes, he was charged with disorderly conduct. There, in addition to the 3 white men that were charged, there was one white woman that was also charged. She was seen hitting the co-captain while he was down. She was charged as well.
Attorney Daryl Jones.
You know, I was worried. Yeah. When you get in a brawl, sometimes you don't know if it's me. Now I'm from Sunnyside, little black community. I'm a street fighter. I'd have grabbed a chair too. I'm thinking, let me get this over with. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you don't know who you're hitting. You know what I mean? You don't know if you're hitting your side or the other side. They don't wear uniforms.
Oh, Lord have mercy. But you know what? This is the truth.
You could have hit a white person trying to help. Only uniform would have been race. But you could have hit a white person trying to help.
But honestly, that's what you saw. I mean, the visual on that dock was a black man was attacked by a group of white men. And that, I don't care where we are, because class is a real thing in every group. As I was laughing about Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I said, she is St. John's and Sable. She would have thrown off that coat, maybe, and she would have jumped across the barrier, and we would have had a beat down on that dock. Because the first thing you think about is a lynching. And then you see the water, and if he had no one around him, look, before they found Emmett Till, they found a whole lot of bodies. The only way they identified Emmett Till was because of a ring that his father, who was a World War II veteran, had given him. His body had been so defiled in a short period of time. So, you know, I think people need to understand that was the visual for us. You know, Attorney Daryl Jones, I'm going to bring you on the other side of the break so we can talk about this. But I want you all to call us because we need to know of course, we want to get your view of what happened there, Attorney Daryl Jones, but really, what's the next play? What about this congressional district that the U.S. Supreme Court said that Black people should have in Alabama? Is it going to happen? Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, because this energy's got to go somewhere. This energy's got to go somewhere, and it's got to be constructive. Yvonne says she's listening from upstate. She said, we're fortunate to have you, Santita. Thank you so much. Reading and preparing to share the public affairs news with the nation. I appreciate the time. She saves me in keeping up with what's going on. Well, I appreciate that. But Yvonne, I want you all to go on and read, because all I want to do is inspire you to get more information yourself. And let me see. Flora said, there's no I in team. I hear you. Tracy says, Reverend Jackson is a freedom fighter, an icon, and a Gen Z civil rights hero. That will never change. I do not know what this, wait a minute, I think, wait, I think you said that, wait a minute, that I should disclaim that these are my opinions or choices. You keep mentioning Reverend Jackson. He does not speak the same way or support the same people. I would never follow this propaganda. I wonder if you're a Republican troll or if you're an intelligence troll, Tracy, because you kind of give me a lot of the business. Number one, my parents have been married 61 years. I think I know them a little better than you. And I reflect my mother and father's opinions and my own. Let's be clear on that. If you don't know my mother, then you don't know me and you don't know him. So you don't know how he's speaking. When I speak to you about going to Africa and sitting with African presidents, Sandy Joe Johnson couldn't sit with an African president, but Santita Jackson can, because I'm with Reverend Jackson. So what I try to do is bring back to you, and Commissioner Ellis has been on many of those trips with Reverend. Have you not, Commissioner Ellis?
Santita, I took my son who's starting law school about a week or so in New York to Colombia.
We've got less than a minute.
And Peru. Mm-hmm. And now they have a black woman as vice president of Colombia. Is that amazing?
Yes.
2 black women in the Peruvian Congress. I never would have known there were so many people from African diaspora in South America. But I learned so much with your dad, and I'm just glad that he gave me an opportunity to see a good bit of the world with him. Yeah. And I'm glad you carry on the mission, you and all of your siblings, all of them.
I think that all of us who've seen, touched, and felt Reverend, that's what we do. And we bring you back information. I don't bring you back propaganda. I bring you back information. If you want to challenge me on a point, Tracy, you should call me or you should put it on here and disprove what I've said to you. Disprove it. Disprove the conversations that I said I had with African presidents and Africans when we were in South Africa and in Kenya, how angry they are about what happened with Gaddafi. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to get upset with me. All you have to do is look what's happening in Nigeria.
We're just gonna pray for. We're gonna pray for Stacey. She needs some help.
Because you really don't understand what's going on here. I mean, I'm trying to give you some information. You can't tell me about what Reverend sees and thinks and feels. I'm trying to share with you what we saw, thought, felt, and how, because he would take Commissioner Ellis and the rest of us into the room with him. He didn't want us to be separated from the information, Senator Coleman and Attorney Jones. He's always busted us up in the rooms with these presidents and with these influencers so we can understand power. Because as he has often said to us, we as Black Americans were in slavery longer than we've been free. We got a lot of catching up to do. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Thank you so much.
Santita, I wish I kept all of the pictures with Nelson Mandela in the room. You remember?
Oh my gosh!
Reverend. At some point, Mr. Mandela, when he wanted to meet with him alone, so we did step out, which was appropriate. Mm-hmm. So I wanted that picture with just Mandela. So somebody on my staff did me one. They had Mandela in there, me in there, and Reverend in there. And then Reverend Jackson told me, well, where's Jesus and Martin Luther King? You could tell it was one of those pictures. It was kind of, what do you call it? When you just go in there, doctor it up a little bit. He said, hey, Rodney, where's Dr. King and Jesus? Just put them all in there. And Kennedy too.
Oh my goodness.
Santita, I'm gonna dial back in, but I gotta take a call. I got a call from one of my colleagues.
Okay.
I'll call back in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll dial right back in this number. Senator, give the senator my number. If she's off, when I come back on.
Right now.
Okay.
Because she needs you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna send you also. I told you, girl, I want to introduce you around the people. Okay, Daryl, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just enjoying the conversation.
I'm coming right to you. And you all, I'm not trying to be rude, but when I get certain people or certain lines of discussion, it's interesting to me because I'm wondering if I'm being trolled, if it's coming from the intelligence community. I don't know what it is. But I try to share with you the things that I have learned. Really, and if my name were Caroline Kennedy, you wouldn't question me. Interestingly enough.
Well, the interesting portion about that is, first of all of us sit down and have discussions with our families.
Absolutely.
So my parents, even my children, when somebody tries to tell me something, I know them. I know them intimately. So in most situations, you do know your family. If you're a close family, you know the voice that they would speak in. You more than likely know exactly how they would respond to a situation.
But also when I am in disagreement with my father, I will let you know that. I mean, right now, we're all figuring out who we're going to support for president. We're not all on the same page on that. We're on the same page. We're going to vote, but different members of my family like different people. And if that's the case, I will tell you that. I will tell you. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But there's some things you can't tell me. No, you said you won't call because you don't need a lecture. No, we'll have an exchange. You won't call because you just don't want to call. And you shouldn't fear calling. Other people call and they disagree with me all the time. And we don't have a problem with that. You're not afraid of being lectured. You're afraid of being shown to be incorrect. And I could be incorrect. Try me. Bring it on. If you're right, I'll concede that. If you're wrong, I'll fight you on it. My parents did raise a fighter.
60 seconds.
I am not right wing at all. What I am is anti-establishment. And what we're dealing with is not a partisan. We're not dealing with a partisan fight. We're dealing with those who support the establishment and those who do not. The establishment enslaves, has indentured servants, creates the situations, creates poverty, and on and on. I'm not with that. So I'm not right-wing talking points. You are absolutely wrong. And you know too little about me and my politics to say that. And I will fight you on that, which you are wrong when you're not telling the truth about me. I'll challenge you on it. So call me. Be a grown-up and call. Otherwise, just stay right here.
Ten seconds.
Okay, so Marika, I'm gonna give him. I'm just. We
can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Monday, August 14, 2023. We're talking about the Alabama brawl and what comes next. But people are still reacting to the brawl itself. Why isn't it a hate crime? Why were the workers fired in the first place? We hear that they've been reinstated, but what happened there? And, and where do we go from here? But first, Attorney Darrell Jones. And of course, we've got Alabama State Senator Marika Coleman on with us. And we're looking at a court case because we're trying to get another congressional representative out of Alabama who would be African-American. They certainly have more than enough Black people down there to have representation. They're underrepresented there. But before we get into that, or as we get into that, and perhaps you can segue into that, Attorney Darrell Jones, your reaction to this Alabama brawl. Number one, why do you think it's resonated so deeply with people?
Good morning, Santita, and good morning to Senator Coleman. I think that what's happening in Montgomery, in this Montgomery attack that occurred on August the 5th, is that it's registering for a number of reasons. I think that Elie Mystal hit it on the head when he talked about white privilege meeting Black pride. Because what you saw happening really was this attack that was on these black person initially that had done nothing wrong, but rather was simply doing his job. And it wasn't just an attack on that one person at that point in time, because, in essence, what you were seeing were people that were saying, this is an attack on my future. This is an attack on me. This is an attack on my children. This is an attack, that goes to the dignity of that individual. That's what you really saw happening. And the response from the primarily African-American people that were there was responding to that attack on them on both the personal level, their future level, and all of that was going into place. They knew that it was wrong. They knew that they were showing that they were breaking out of a history of saying that I will sit idly by while you beat my brother because I am powerless. the message they were sending, this is not that time. This is a different day. So that's what I think you saw happening during that Montgomery attack. And interestingly, this comes at a time when in Alabama, not just prior to that, what was it, a week or two prior to that, I believe, maybe 3 weeks, that we had the case dealing with redistricting that went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, where Alabama, which is some 27% African American, was denied by the Alabama General Assembly a second congressional district. They were then ordered by the U.S. Supreme Court to go back and redraw this district, the maps, so that the Black population in Alabama is adequately reflected in the state, meaning a second congressional Black district. What did the General Assembly do? They flipped their nose to them, put their thumb to the nose, and said, we ain't going to follow you. We know what's best for Alabama, and we're not going to give these Black people a second district. And so it's in light of all of that that's going on that you then have this brawl, this attack that happens in Montgomery. So, I think all of this flows together. It's not just an Alabama issue. It's not just a Montgomery issue. This is an issue of the country right now watching, figuring out, where are we going? What happens when a state General Assembly says to the U.S. Supreme Court, we don't care what you say. We're not going to do anything to help that Black population. That's where we are right now. And this is why voting matters, right? We know that the majority of that U.S. Supreme Court were appointed by presidents, Republican presidents, who lost the popular vote, didn't win the popular vote. So by a majority of the people, we know that Alabama is broken up because of the redistricting and trying to limit the power of the Black voters there, so that you would have less control and less power from that 27%. All of this is what you see manifesting itself in this Montgomery attack and the response from the primarily African Americans to being attacked by those white supremacists there in Montgomery on the waterfront.
We're talking with Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. I mean, I guess I'm trying to find out now what's next, because, Attorney Jones and Senator Coleman, there's a lot of energy. I mean, and you see it in social media, you see the memes, you see the comedy sketches, you see people giving their opinions, and I am so happy to see and feel the energy. But no one's mentioned the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, which said that you need, that you merit another congressional district. No one's talked about that. And that the state of Alabama turned that they said, no, we're not going to do what the U.S. Supreme Court instructed us to do. I mean, please follow up on that. Or am I missing something?
No, I want to make a clarification also. So, and I ask the press oftentimes to make the distinction when they say the Alabama legislature and what the Alabama legislature did. I'm a member of that body. It's the Republican supermajority of the Alabama legislature that sent maps that literally put a middle finger up to the Supreme Court. There was only one Black member that voted with that, and that's the one Black Republican that we have. So all of the other 27 in the House of Representatives and the other 7 in the Senate, we voted against those maps, and all of the Democrats, all 37 Democrats in both the House and the Senate voted against those maps that, again, we believe are a violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So I'd like to make that distinction about what members of the Alabama legislature actually did. So the what next is, I think that what we do is number one, today we have the federal hearing here in Birmingham, Alabama at the Hugo Black Building. There's a lot of community people, even our sorority, Santita, we are showing up in our red today. I already have my red on and my curls ready for the hearing today. I've signed on to a brief along with other elected officials to challenge the Republican-led congressional map in solidarity with the plaintiffs. So what we hope is that the 3-judge panel will rule that the special master has to come in to right the wrong, and the special master will end up redrawing these maps. So it does really reflect what the Supreme Court has said and what their original ruling was, that with the population that we have, it warrants a second minority district, second majority district in the state of Alabama. And that should be Congressional District 2 is what they're looking at. So that's the next step when it comes to the map. We will be in court today. But when it comes to the energy that we've seen around the country as a result of the Montgomery brawl, I hope that we use a time such as this to transfer that energy into action, to also transfer that energy into some level of education, for folks to know that there's a direct impact on what goes on in state legislatures around the country and what goes on in the U.S. Congress, to who actually is in office. I know there are rebel rousers like you, Santita, that think that there are, and of course, and fight the establishment both in the Democratic and the Republican Party. But for the issues that I care about, I am a partisan right now. I'm an elected Democrat because that particular party is the one that aligns closer to my value system. That particular party is the party in recent history that has fought for the plight of Black folks, other communities of color, women. That's why I'm a partisan. So I hope that we transfer this energy right now and this emotion to get more people actively involved in political participation, in social justice, in challenging these legislatures around the country, members of Congress, in county commissions, in school boards, and city councils and mayors alike, to actually hear the voices of the people, to say that we shall not be moved, just like those Black folks on the dock on August the 5th, that when we are attacked and somebody tries to put their foot on the neck of us, we are going to not stand for it. And not only stand for it, we're not going to talk about it, just talk about it. We're going to fight against it. So we hope that we take this and bottle this into some real change.
What can we do? I mean, is there anything that we can do to support you as these lawsuits go forth?
Sure. There are state legislatures around the country, Black caucuses specifically around the country, that have court cases on redistricting. All the southern states just about have some type of challenges. U.S. citizens can do your own amicus or amicus brief, depending on your pronunciation of it, in support of challenging these Republican-led or these maps around the country that are trying to disenfranchise Black votes. I was with your father many, many years ago speaking at the National Press Club. He gave me the opportunity to speak before the National Press Club to talk about stacking and packing, where around the country, and I wish I could remember the year, but I remember that Trey at the time was in elementary school because we made a stop at his school as well. But stacking and packing, what these Republican legislators are trying to do is pack Black people in these specific districts so we don't have influence in other districts where we cannot choose our candidates of choice in other districts, and really change the trajectory of who, and remember, I'm a partisan, so the trajectory of what the U.S. House and what these legislatures look like. So we do need you to stand in solidarity with us. We can't just fight ourselves, especially in these red states. So signing on to those briefs, marching in the streets. I was reading just last night that there are folks around the country that are protesting at their state legislatures. And so again, and especially if you live in conservative districts, you need to let your conservative legislators, your Republican legislators know that you're the constituent and you're watching and you're going to make them accountable. There's so many things we can do on social media as well. And then, at the end of the day, you can run for office. Last night on Twitter, or X or whatever it's called right now, there was a young woman who said, I just don't know. Somebody tell me what the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus is doing to fight against Ron DeSantis in other southern states, just like what Arkansas just said recently, their state school board on Huckabee now that they are not going to acknowledge or take AP African American history course aligned in their course curriculum. So she asked the question, what are y'all doing? And someone said, well, number one, you need to follow what's going on with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund because they are fighting the good fight. But also the Congressional Black Caucus is on the front line. But what you can do is start running for school boards around the country. You can start running for mayors and city councils and state legislatures. Some of the most extreme legislation right now is happening in state legislatures around the country, especially with open carrying and all of these other things where they're taking away women's right to choose. You can run for these positions. And we need more progressive-minded people running for these positions around the country, because what it does, even if you don't win, you are highlighting the issue. You are making these folks have to take up issues that otherwise they may not even have to take up because you ran for office. So you've got to do that. And then, you in addition to the political portion of it, you also have to have some courage when it comes to even your job and making people accountable for diversity in the positions that you hold in corporate America. Many of you, rallied around, and I'm talking to the corporate sector right now. After George Floyd was murdered in front of all of us, while we had the opportunity to stay at home and watch the videos while we were in quarantine, corporate sector of this country came out and said, we want to be more diverse. That is not who we are. They started hiring DEI directors around the country. Now, because of the political climate, some folks are marching those things back or walking that back, in addition to attacking our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters around the country. So now this is where the rubber meets the road. You have to have the courage to stand up for what you said you were not in 2020. You said you were not the level of white supremacy that led to the murder of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and many other nameless folks that we don't even know about around this country. So we have to hold the corporate sector accountable as well. I know you didn't, give me all of this time, but this is my platform.
This is not the floor of the legislature. Come on now.
So I'm going to talk.
No. So, you know what? Let me tell you something. And you know what? Attorney Jones, Senator, Alabama State Senator Marika Coleman. This is where our stories are not told. You should be on CNN this morning. You should be on MSNBC this morning. I mean, since they want to be balanced, fair, and someone else says that they tilt liberal, they should be talking about what's next. Because that's right.
I'll go on Fox News if they invite me. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, and Fox will do it. Just what's next? What's next? I think it is a great moment. Attorney Jones at the Supreme Court said the U.S. Supreme Court, a conservative Supreme Court, they affirmed this second congressional district, but the state of Alabama said no. Why is that not an issue, Attorney Jones? I think it should be.
And it goes you're absolutely right, Santita. And it goes even deeper. It's not just that the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed and said, create the second district. On its way up, the case went to the U.S. Court of Appeals, to the Circuit Court. And two of the three judges there were Trump appointees. And they said, Alabama's black community deserves a second congressional black district, that this is a violation of the Voting Rights Act on its face. And the question then becomes still, why aren't we hearing more about it? Why isn't it the national issue? We're so, pleased and blessed to have a person like Senator Coleman who's there and continues to ring the bell and to yell and to push to say, listen, this is the issue that's there, that she does the amicus brief and she stands in the breach saying, I'm going to protect the black voters and the people in my district and the folks all over the state of Alabama. But we need to be certain that we have people that are standing with her, that she's not, standing there alone and we're giving that support. So, when she talks about social media, if you're not in Alabama, get on social media and raise the issue. Send the emails out. If you know people in Alabama, tell them to go to the court hearing. Tell them to follow, what's happening there. And she's absolutely right. In the state of Florida, where, the Transformative Justice Coalition, Rainbow Push, and Black Voters Matter, all of us transcended on there, joined Juneteenth, along with the NAACP. And what we were doing there is that we were raising the issue of all the attacks that are going on all of the communities, the Black community, the brown community, the gay community, all of those that are in the state of Florida that are being attacked. We're calling people together. We're telling them, take notice. Understand what's going on, and then unify behind it, particularly around election time. So, when the state senator is talking about the use of your social media, the use of your emails, follow the case, get involved with a political organization. If there's not one in your area, start one. Get involved in this fight, because this in the state of Alabama is a huge fight that's going on. And so, we just give huge kudos to Senator Coleman and all the folks that are down there that are fighting this fight.
Mm-hmm. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. If I get you right now, I'll be able to talk with you just off the air. Tracy, this is the last time I'm going to address you today. I think you just want some attention, and you've got it. Because I think you speak to what some people are saying. You say it's CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and the rest are corporations with bosses. This is why Generation Z does not watch it. And et cetera, et cetera. I got you. I watch them because, number one, if you want to know how to oppose, if you need to come up with the counter argument, you need to understand what the baseline argument is. I've been on Fox. I've been a political commentator with them for several years. I get it. Well, I'm saying I'm clear on who corporate media is. That's why I try to share with you. My father started taking us, and I'm speaking of my father, because my father, in that capacity, took us because he wanted to raise his children to understand who Reverend Jackson was and the fight that he was engaged in. I know the difference between Reverend Jackson and my father. I'm the one who explained it to you. What I'm trying to help you to understand is our father took us into these rooms because guess what? That's what white people in power do. Robert Kennedy Jr., whatever you think of him, he tells you, Senator Coleman and Attorney Jones, how the day that his Uncle John, the president of the United States, was killed, how he followed his father into the home office and heard him call the CIA and the FBI and ask him if they did it, if they killed him. These folks take their children in so they can understand power, do they not, Marika?
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
So I'm not mindful of who these corporations are. I know who they are in order to be able to tell you what they're not doing, because so many of us do look and listen. That's why I share that with you. I don't look at them for information. I look at them as sources. And then I read. That's why I'm up until about 12 o'clock at night, and I'm up at 2. I've not had enough rest. And quite frankly, on some levels, it's compromised my health, but I'm going to work that out. Don't worry about me. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. That's why I'm trying to bring this to you. I don't need to read Reverend's book. Help to edit these books. So, I can invoke Reverend Jackson anytime I choose. I'm trying to share with you I'm trying to share with you the backstories. You weren't in the bedroom when he gathered my brother and my sister and I, all 5 of us, to tell him why he was putting his life on the line to run for president. He was the most threatened presidential candidate in history. He got his Secret Service protection the day that he ran. I was in the room when they were negotiating with the Reagan White House for him to get his Secret Service protection immediately. Wow. I wish you knew what that was like. Knowing that my father was walking in the steps of Medgar and Martin and Malcolm, and knowing that he had outlived them by 3 and 5 years, and saying, "Oh my gosh, our number is up." They used to say it in the newspapers and in Newsweek and in Time. You need to walk in my shoes. So before you come for me, you need to get your information, because you're a Generation Z, but I'm older than you. I know what I've lived through. That's why I say you need to understand what Fox is reporting. You need to understand what MSNBC and CNN are reporting. You need to understand what the corporations are giving you. Because when you go into Wuhan and when you go into Johannesburg and when you go into Nairobi, the people who meet you there are the U.S. corporations and the European corporations. When they find out that Reverend Jackson is coming to town, they want to meet with him because they're having trouble with the revolutionaries. And they're like, well, can you kind of help us, Reverend? No, those are the meetings I've been in. And that's what I try to share with you. Whatever generation you're in, what does not change is the power struggle. In my lifetime, not in yours, there was a man named Robert Strauss who was the chairman of the Democratic and Republican Party in the same decade. These people are not partisan. When Senator Coleman says she's a partisan, she's behaving in a partisan manner because we have to use the Democratic Party right now because that's what that is the tool that we can use for our own emancipation and freedom. 150 years ago, it was the Republican Party. What does not change is the power struggle. Whatever party it is, whatever party it ain't, whoever the president is, whoever the president ain't, you must fight for your piece of the pie. That's what you must do. And I'm not going to back up off of that. I'm not going to back up off of sharing with you the experiences that I've had because I want to share them with you because when I shut my eyes for the final time, at least you've heard what it's like to be in that room. I mean, at least you need to know. So, like I said, if you want to call in, call in. But I don't want you to be disruptive to the Morning Stars. I want you to feel and know that if you disagree with me, you can call in. I don't have a problem with that. Where you're wrong, I'm a fighter. I'm Jesse and Jackie Jackson's child. I believe in fighting. And I'll fight till to the death on the point where if I think it's right. And I'll correct you on history that you don't understand or that you don't know. I reserve the right to do that. I'm not going to back up off of that, ever. I love you, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. Stay with me, Morning Stars, and let's talk a little bit. But that's enough. If you want to call Tracy, call. Otherwise, I don't want you to be disruptive to this line. It's not fair. I love everybody. God bless. Senator Coleman and Attorney Jones. Senator Coleman, well, first Attorney Jones, what do you want us to know? Because I think right now we need to be looking at next steps. Because to me, the next step is getting another congressperson out of Alabama. And I want Marika Coleman to be that congressperson. Just be quiet, Marika. That's what I want.
Well, we don't endorse any Congress people, but I tell you, what Senator Coleman has shown,
Coalition does not.
I do as well, or I'll send the money.
Right. TJC on itself does not endorse any political candidates, but I'm going to tell you, the type of fight that you see in Senator Coleman is the type of fight that you want to see in your member of Congress, in your representative. Because let me tell you, and I'll tell you the reason why, and I don't just say this in jest. The reason I say that is that a lot of the fights that we're having in redistricting, a lot of the fights that we're having in the southern states and some of the other states with regards to voter suppression, all of that would be dealt with if we had the federal Freedom to Vote Act that was put into law.
Exactly.
And so if we can have sufficient number of members of Congress, both the House and the Senate, that are supporters of the Freedom to Vote Act, then we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. That's why I say that we've got to be certain that we push to have people that are, want to have the what is the saying that Reverend Jackson uses, that you want the playing field level, right? And the rules transparent, and we can deal with the results of the game at that point. But, we need to be certain that we have representation at the table that is being certain that everything is level. And that's where that the Freedom to Vote Act would be significant. That would be it being displayed right there, Santita. So what we need to do is to be certain, number one, that we're registered to vote. Number two, that we're out there voting. And number three, that we're holding our elected officials accountable for how they're voting on issues that matter to us. That's where we are right now. And being certain that we're reaching out to our younger voters right now to be certain that they're on board. They understand what's at stake and what's at issue.
Amen to that. Marika Coleman, State Senator Marika Coleman. To me, it's the next steps now, because I'm watching people talking. I'm watching people from the Harriet II, from the riverboat talk. I think that's important. They need to get this out because it was a traumatizing event for everybody. And I think that's the piece that we don't discuss enough, because Black people have been traumatized in America. When we talk about Black pride meeting white privilege, no, Black pride has met white privilege a long time. We just got lynched for it. Okay? Don't act like Black folks didn't come up with courage in the 21st century. We've been courageous since we got here. That's
exactly it. Right there. That's right.
That piece, right?
That's exactly it.
Okay, we've been fighting slavery and injustice for the 500 years that we've been here. We got here in 1532 with the Spaniards. This ain't new. No. What you're seeing now is things have shifted. It's not that we're not fighting harder than our ancestors. You're not going to tell me that you're fighting harder than Harriet Tubman. You're not. No. This woman laid it on the line every single day. You're not fighting harder than Fannie Lou Hamer. No. Nat Turner. No. Wait. Black courage has been here a long time. Rosa Parks. No. It was illegal. It was against state law for her to be a member of the NAACP. This woman was the state secretary who was famous across the state for pursuing the rapes of Black women, the sexual assaults of Black women. No. Y'all, hold up, wait a minute. Vernon Johns, great unsung hero of the movement, who was disliked by the Black church because for all of his book learning, he was unorthodox because he kept pushing back against Jim Crow. We've been pushing back against this system since the beginning. My point is now that we've had the fight on the dock of the bay and we've watched the tide roll away, what's going to roll in? Are we going to get this other congressional seat? The Supreme Court said we should have it. The state said no. It feels very Civil War-ish to me, Marika Coleman, Senator. Because because the state's saying to the federal government to go straight to the devil.
Well, the Republican supermajority said that.
Yeah,
well, that's what they said. But today, on the steps of the Hugo Black federal building, there will be people of all races that will be standing there in solidarity with the militant plaintiffs that filed. Military and Castor plaintiffs that originally filed the lawsuit. So, again, there still will be a group of diverse people saying that you are wrong, Alabama Republicans. But this is the whole issue with gerrymandering from the beginning. We have these state legislatures around the country. Look what just happened in Ohio, where you have a Republican-led legislature who wanted to make it harder to put initiatives on the ballot as it relates to abortion and others. The people fought back because they have initiative and referendum. The people fought back to say that you do not reflect the general public's belief system. But we have these gerrymandered legislatures around the country that are passing laws that are adverse to society. And not only adverse to society, they're not what the public wants. That's why we have our redistricting court case. That's why other ones are going on around the country. And that's why we just can't sit back and not do anything. On Saturday, I was at the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. Members of
yes,
Congressman Benny Thompson from Alabama, Mississippi. Sponsors is the lead sponsor to that. Mississippi from the lead sponsor of that. And so when I'm having lunch, anytime I have a young person, I'm always asking, are they politically engaged? So we have a waiter, young fella. I ask him, is he in school? And he tells me about what he's doing, what he wants to do. And so I asked him, are you registered to vote? He said, I'm registered to vote, but I don't really do politics. That's what he said. Politics, it just doesn't really, I don't connect with it. I don't really do politics. And I said, well, politics does you, though. I said, do you know that every aspect of your day-to-day has been impacted by who's in office, including when you woke up this morning and you rode on these streets to get to your job? Somebody made a decision today that's an elected office where they've made a decision about, was that road to be paved? Was it not to be paved? your check today. Those folks in office determine the taxes that come out of your check. And he said, well, maybe I understand. And I said, so if you don't do politics, it's still doing you. So it is important that you get politically engaged, at least even for self-serving reasons. How much money I take home. So we've got to do some more education with our young people. And it's one of the reasons why I still keep a contract. I still teach. I have a law firm, but I still teach at Miles College in Fairfield, Alabama, and I teach at a general education course, which I would be teaching right now if I was not on the phone on the line with you all today. My students are doing their course readiness test, so they're still in class. But I love teaching this Introduction to American Government course because I have majors from the cross section of the college, not just political science majors. And what's so amazing about that course is when we start at the beginning, we actually do a pre and post test. The pre-test they actually took last week, and it's a portion of the new U.S. naturalization course. So I asked let's see how American you actually are. So they take that test, and they're also worried that they don't know, what's the supreme law of the land when they start the course. Some of them may not even know a war that was fought in the 1900s. These are questions that come out. They don't know the economic system that we're under in the U.S. So by the end of the course, of course, they know all of these things. But what's amazing to me is by the midterm of the course, when you start seeing the light bulb come off, when they make the connection between government and public policy and whatever career field you want to go into. That's why I teach this course, because they end up coming to me and saying, hey, Ms. Coleman, did you read about this? Do you know about that? That's why I teach this course, because we have to make that connection for not just our young people, but for all people, that no matter what you're doing in your life, even if you think like some of my neighbors, I live in an upper middle class, primarily Black neighborhood. A lot of my neighbors, they come in, they go into their garages, and they go in, and you wouldn't even really recognize the folks because they just come home and go. But when I'm walking and I'm campaigning and I'm talking to those same people, why should I care about mass transit when I have 3 cars in my home? Because you are your brother's keeper. And if for self-serving reasons, you don't want crime to increase because you don't want them to come to your house and take the stuff that you work for. We've got to educate our folks for why there is a direct connection for every aspect of your life when it comes to government.
We owe it to our children. That's another one of my soapboxes. Well, no, yeah. I mean, my brother, Jonathan, who's in Congress now, one of the highlights of his life, he said, was teaching at Chicago State and at Kennedy King. I mean, these kids who are overlooked, who are so sharp. I mean, but they don't have parents who read the Wall Street Journal. I know it's right wing, but you know, it's the Wall Street Journal. You need to read it. New York Times. I understand what all these papers are saying, but you still need to read them. If you're going to counter the argument, you need to know what the argument is. And you need a source for information. You need that. So these are things that we have to help our children to understand. Just okay, this is how this works.
I had a student last week. Last week we were talking about current events. I start every class period with the same thing: what's going on in the world. That's how I started. And so one of my students says to me, "Well, Miss Coleman, I am on a I'm taking a break from social media, so I don't know what's going on in the news." And I chuckled. I said, "Ma'am, you do know you can get your news from some other place besides social media." But she said, "I didn't think about that, Miss Coleman." And that's the other piece of it. Like literally thinking the only place you get news is from social media, and there's not all of these other media outlets outside of social media to find out actually what is going on in the world.
Well, that's because they don't trust corporate media.
True that, but she literally didn't know.
Because now it's so pervasive. They look past all of this. And this is how they're getting their news. And the press is the only protected labor class in our Constitution. Because in order for the Republic to remain viable, we can't even get to democracy. Just in order to keep the Republic, you need to have a free and open press. That's why censorship is so dangerous.
Amen.
You know, and we have to push corporate media, because that's what we've got right now. Let them know, hey, what you're doing is hurting. You're hurting the republic. That's what you're doing. You're hurting it because you're not telling the truth. Most Americans don't trust any of our institutions: the Supreme Court, the U.S. Congress, both houses, the executive branch, the press. It's dangerous when we don't have a common tie, when we don't have, just a baseline for which we're all operating. And we don't have that anymore. We don't have that. So, it's just is something for us to think about and to act on. What else can we do? I mean, where do you want us to go from here? State Senator Marika Coleman, what's next?
So I've talked, and I will continue to talk really about, taking the energy that's going on in the country right now to transfer that to activism. And you can be an activist in many different forms or fashion. But in addition to that, when I think back to the Montgomery Brawl, you and I have had a discussion about the roles that the two 16-year-olds played in the brawl or the battle or the beatdown, however you want to characterize August 5th, that you had one white, one black that both tried to intervene, that this next generation is a more diverse generation. This next generation of folks, of young people, actually have friends and relationships that are more diverse than other generations. But we need to also wrap our arms around them to teach them activism. Yeah. Some of them are hollering and screaming and they're upset about things, but there are ways to do that. What Reverend Jackson did and others with their level of nonviolent activism, it worked. And some of these young people ain't with no out. Look, they ain't with no nonviolence.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Train them to be real advocates. Train them on where the rubber meets the road when it comes to changing laws. That also train them sometimes, and it depends on the elected official. When it comes to me, you get more with me than sugar than vinegar. That's just how I operate. That somebody else might be moved another way. But train them on those things. But also with our young people, they also have to be coachable. One of the things that I have two kids. My daughter, two young adults, but they're my babies. I have a daughter that's 25 years old who just graduated from the University of Alabama at Birmingham with 2 master's degrees. Very, very proud of that young woman. Amen. And my son is 22. Yes, my son is 22 years old and is a senior now at Miles College, actually, where I teach. One of the things that I've always heard about him, about my son, is that he was coachable. Every coach he ever had, it was like, this kid has natural raw talent. And you think about this when it comes to some of our young people, when it comes to natural raw leadership. But all of his coaches always said, but the other thing is that he's coachable. He listens, he directs, he can redirect. So he brings his own level of leadership. But the real skill is that he's also coachable. And so with our young people, and even people my age, I mean, I'm at the middle age now. Oh Lord, I'm middle age.
Hallelujah.
I'm 49. We'll have my 50th birthday, praise God, God willing, on September 6th. And for our seasoned citizens that have been in the movement, been in the fight, that have they have a roadmap. All of these generations of folks need to be getting together and developing strategies. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Young people bring that wealth of knowledge when it comes to social media and technology. Our old school folks who have that roadmap when it comes to traditional justice. Our folks in the middle right now that are still in the job market and actually are the ones that are making laws. We all bring a skill set that we could come together and, Lord, what we could do, what the political power and voting power that we could have if we all got together and strategized and then took that strategy and moved to action. That's my dream, that we can all come together.
Amen. And to be coachable, Attorney Jones, to be
Yes,
teachable.
be coachable.
Absolutely.
And let me acknowledge,
Absolutely.
Tracy, you said, that I want to say this. If you think I've disrespected you, I apologize. Look, you need to understand me, and I accept that. And I go back and forth, and I'm unafraid to do that. And maybe we're not accustomed to seeing women do that, Senator Coleman. Women who believe in and just going into the fight. That's my background. You have to understand that. I don't believe it was your intention to be disrespectful, but there's a lot that you don't know. There's a lot that you have not lived. So I try to share that with you. So when you tell me that I sound like a right winger, you're out of order. Because I've never been a right winger. I put my life on the line. I grew up with the Chicago police outside of my home all of my life. I was afraid to go to college because I was afraid somebody was going to come into our house and murder my whole family, because that is my history. Rena Evers is my friend, Medgar Evers' daughter. She said, out of this whole group, I feel saddest for you, because every time the special bulletin comes on, she said, I know that fear that overcomes you. I said, oh yeah, girl, I go through it. I mean, it's never stopped. You see, my girlfriend was taught by her father, Medgar, to drop, tuck, and roll, because he knew these people were going to kill him. See, that's my background. Those are my peers, and they're older than I am. I'm the youngest. I'm the baby of the group. Bernice King and I are the babies of that group, but that's our group. I never thought that my father would see me come out of high school, college, anything. That's my background. My father didn't just run for president. The people drafted him to run. And no one thought he was going to be alive at the end of his first run, or even the second. You have not lived until you have a helicopter sitting up above your home all night long because someone has threatened to blow it up. That's how I've lived. And we kept on going. I don't complain. Somebody's got to take a hit for the team. I'm glad that God trusted us enough to do it. So when I try to share things with you, it's so that you can understand what the struggle really is about. It's not a partisan struggle. This is about the establishment that established slavery, that established that America's business is not freedom, but it's business. And everything here has been commodified, including people. And you ought to have enough self-respect, not you, but we in general, to fight for our rights as human beings, and to take that piece of paper upon which the Constitution is written and all that it said for these imperfect people who were slaveholders and all of that, to take it all seriously. Because the whole point of America as an idea, as an ideal, has expanded over time. And the genius of the founders is that they left space for the franchise and for this idea and ideal of America to be expanded. So I invite you to call in. I invite anyone who agrees or disagrees with me to call in. A lecture, no. But where you are incorrect on your misinterpretation of me and what I've experienced, I'll take you on it, because you've not lived my life I have. I can't tell you what went on in your house, and you can't tell me what went on in mine. I'm not going to let you do it. By the same token, I'm going to share with you. This is what I saw. And if I disagree with my father, and as I have on some things, I respectfully do that, and I can do it publicly. My father's not my dictator. He's my daddy. So even if I disagree with him publicly, we don't fall out. If he needed a kidney of mine, he could have it right now. And that goes for my brother in Congress. He's going to vote and have some positions with which I will not agree. He still lives in my heart. And I defy any of you to challenge that. My brothers, my sister, and I, we have different views on a whole lot of things. So what? Different interpretations. That's it. So, enough. Because like I said, you keep putting all these comments in here because I'm wondering if you're trolling or if you want a lot of attention and you're taking up a lot of space and you're misinforming, which is something that I have to correct you on. And either you call in and you explain your position, or we're going to have to do something about this. Because I don't allow people to troll and to take us off the point. and to need this much attention. Need too much of it. And what does Chappelle say? Well, we're not going to be sick of anyone. But, you agree with me on some points, and I hear you, but this is ridiculous. So, I'm just trying to, I share with you what I share with you because, it's a very interesting thing. If my last name were Kennedy, if I were a white person, there are things you would not question me on. I know it, I've lived that. Because, some of it is racial. And even if you are Black, Tracy, some of it is. You can't believe that we've seen what we've seen. Well, we've seen what we've seen and we've done what we've done. And we have come back from the highest reaches to come back and share some things with you. That's all. I'm going to continue to do it. And like I said, if you disagree, call in. Well, then you're not trolling, but enough of what you said today. We're done. Now step from in front of the keyboard. Pearl said, you're hiding behind the keyboard. Don't hide behind there. Step in front. Get on the mic and call and say something. Otherwise, keep your opinions to yourself. Enough. And Jennifer, it's a lot to live with, but you know what? A friend of mine who has gone into a friend of mine who's become quite powerful said, I never would have allowed my children to go through what your family went through. I said, yeah, but you'll benefit from it. And they have. Somebody's got to take a hit for the team. I'm glad God trusted us enough to take a hit for the team. And have I been traumatized? Yes. Has it been painful? Yes. Have we paid a personal price for it? You damn right we have. Absolutely we have. But such is the price of freedom. Whatever you feel about Obama, he would not have had the opportunity to be president, and he would not have had the playbook had it not been for Jesse Jackson and the team who helped him to run. And yes, Tracy, I'll challenge Obama because where he disappointed me and where I feel that he did not do right, I will say it, just as I'll say it about any president. That's my obligation. I'm not going to back up off of that. I'm an adult. I'm a grown woman who's got opinions. And I'm functioning in a space in which women, it is when we have opinions, Marika, oh, the whole world stops. Oh, you're not being nice. No. Let me tell you something. When I was almost 400 pounds, I was nice all the time and just ate and just stuffed my feelings. I don't do that anymore. And I would not take some stuff then. But I absolutely won't take it now. Oh, no. I believe in just saying, no, that ain't going to work. So you all need to get accustomed to a woman of opinions because that's what I am. And I hope that empowers my other sisters out here to have some opinions and get out here and make the world right. We turn the world upside down. We need to turn it right side up. Thank you, Eve. Attorney Jones, you got to come in behind all of that. No, he's like, get away from me. Get away from me. As long as it's a bully pulpit, Tracy, and you're not a bully, but you're hiding behind the keyboard. And I have a problem with that. You're too courageous and you're too smart. Come out from behind that keyboard and call in. And let your opinion stand the test of day. That's all you need to do. You win some, you'll lose some. That's the way life works. And grown people are prepared to do that. Now you go on to be grown and do it. That's right. Hear you, War. I hear you, Laura. My handsome Superman who brings his little doggy with him. It's so sweet to see you out there walking that pooch during the convention. I said, I love it. This is so sweet. You didn't even, because we put our dog in a dog hotel when we went away one time, and we promised we could never do that again. Snicker already had separation issues because he was a mutt who nearly died, who was nearly dead when we got him. And we could never do that again. We had to keep Snicker with us everywhere we went, no matter where. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Bailey was a rescue, so he has the separation anxiety issues as well. So he wants to be certain that he's wherever he can be. And
absolutely.
So try to be certain he has that support.
Snicker was rescued, but we didn't call it that. He was just half dead, literally, when he wandered into our yard. And my parents pulled my mother and father pulled him into the house. My father was scared to death. Yes, he was. Not afraid of the world, but he was like, Jackie, this dog may die. She said, no, we're going to save it. And he was like, oh. Fortunately, a veterinarian lived around the corner. But I mean, he didn't hold out much hope for him, but we would sit with Snicker all night long, and we would literally lie on the floor with him and hold him. And he stayed with us for about 15 years, bless his heart. But what are your thoughts? We've had a day.
It's been an incredible day, and it's been a teachable day. And those that are open to learning hopefully have learned a lot. But one of the things that Senator Coleman said, that I certainly wanted to lift up, particularly with our young people, because with the Transformative Justice Coalition, we teach young people. That's our big thing. Is our Millennial Votes Matter and Gen Z Institute, where we're teaching them, we're flying them in, and one of them was in Montgomery, Alabama. So at her rally that they'll be having today, I know that some of our TJC fellows are going to be there. They've already indicated, that they are, they're rallying folks to come together, to be at the hearing, to be in the courtroom, to be supportive. So there's a lot that's going on to encourage our young folks to get out there, but we've got to be certain that, that we're doing all that we can to continue to spill into them and to just fill them with the knowledge that we have so that they can continue the fight that they're putting forth on their level, because, they can identify with one another in a way that we cannot identify with them. So we got to be certain that we just really, really pour into them. And I'm going to hopefully reach out to Senator Coleman, because, what she's doing at Miles College pairs in perfectly with what we're doing at the Transformative Justice Coalition with regards to training those 18 to 35 that are the activists that are coming up through the ranks. So it's important that we, get them, ready and prepared. And it's even more important that we spill into them our experiences like you were just doing, Santita, with regards to your experiences, because they need to hear, what has gone in, what were the investments that have gone into getting us where we are today, and using that as part of the mapping for where we should be going from here. So, I think that's where I want to hold it off at this point, Santita. We've got so much to do. We've got to be certain that we check, our vote.org of registration status, but we've got to be certain also that we get into the streets and let people know that we're not going to sit back and let things like this happen to us.
Amen. Amen. Tracy, I'm glad that you're going to call tomorrow, but you say, you don't want to talk on these breaks. You'll be talking on these breaks if you speak at this particular time. You say you also work for a corporation. No, I don't. I own this show. Actually, I'm a brokered show, so I have to pay this station to be on the air. See what you don't know if you don't ask? So no, part of the reason I can speak freely is because I don't work for the station. I pay the station to be on the air. Okay? So, all of that. So, I've done all of that, and I have been self-employed most of my life, and I get it. So, just ask questions. And like I said, stop trying to hide behind this keyboard. Get in here and get involved. And you can call in. You can't, depending upon when you call in and where you fall in the queue, that's when I can take you on the air. But you're not going to take up a whole lot of space. You have 2 minutes to make a comment or ask a question, and that's the end of that. I try to hold people on during the segments so that people can say what they really need to say. You don't determine that. I try to determine that. And my board operator is in another location because I'm broadcasting from home. So, ask me how the show is run before you determine how you're gonna fit in it. Okay, it's just you just keep going on and on and on. And so, and that you're beholden. No one is beholden to no one. I'm beholden to all of you, including you. And I like it that way. No one stands by themselves. I need sponsors. And when sponsors sponsor you, they let you know that what they like, what they don't like. That's the way it works. No one is completely free, but you do the best that you can. And that's the end of that. So, like I said, that's the end. That's the end of that. Like I said, I don't know if you're trolling or what, but you have a lot of opinions and you should have them. But don't talk to me about my style and lecturing and all of that, because I'm going to have my opinions. One thing you cannot argue me down on is what I've lived and what I've experienced. Just as you said that I work for a corporation, you didn't know that I own the show. That's why I have to pay such a high price for it. But if you don't ask, and if you don't engage me, you won't know. You've made a lot of presumptions. That's the end of that. I'm going to stop engaging you this much because that means I've got to miss Laura and Lorraine and D-Ray and Michael Ann and on and on and on. You take up too much space as you spew misinformation. And I don't like that. So check that out. Check it. All right. I love you, everybody. Marika Coleman, state senator from the great state of Alabama. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm saying goodbye, actually, because, of course, I've mentioned previously that today is our hearing here with the 3-judge panel. So in addition to being a legislator, I'm a freedom fighter. So I want to get out here in the streets. I want to get out here in the streets with my brothers and sisters that are coming here to stand in solidarity with us to say that we're not going to support these Republican maps. So I'm about to hit the streets, Santita.
Well, I'm going to change my pink lipstick to red lipstick today.
That's it.
For you.
Got your red lipstick on. So also standing with the sorors today. So thank you again for highlighting what's going on in Alabama. And I will see you the next time.
Well, you know what? I want you to come on and talk to us, not just about what's happening in Alabama, but just speak to us in general, because I think that we all have, I'm not from Alabama, but what happens to Alabama matters to me. What happens there? It matters to me. It's Alabama. And I am Alabama. You're Chicago. Keep on traveling north. You will be here. so many of you, please. People fled Alabama and Mississippi and came right here, and Detroit and Minneapolis. So, I want you to just know that you have a home here. And whatever is happening in Alabama.
I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. It is of great import to us. Get out there, Sora. Ooh, do your thing.
Ooh. All right. Y'all.
I'm with you.
All right.
All right. Now,
okay.
I give you a real good one. Love you. All right.
Yes, you did. You did.
Come on now.
Take care, everybody.
Love you, everybody. Love you, Daryl. Thank you so much. And love you. Thank you, Devin, for a great show. Sending you so much love today. And, it's going to be 106 degrees. Where are you, D-Ray? Lord. It's been hot. It has been hot. Wow. So I'm sending you so much love, everybody. Love you, love you, love you. Have a great day. And thank you for being with me today. And like and share. I forget to say that, but please like and share the broadcast, everybody. All right. Love y'all.